Hi, my name is Matt Greenfield, and I was the Senior ADR Director and English Language Producer for Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's been quite a while since I've watched these episodes, so it's kind of interesting for me coming back and looking at it after all these years. Of course, the episodes you're looking at now have been completely remixed in 5.1 stereo, and the images have been completely reprocessed off the original film, so this looks so much better than the show did when we originally released it. When we released the show originally, what we had was the versions that were run on Japanese television. Basically, there were a lot of film splices that were actually in the original master, and when the splices went through the telecine machine, you'd get a little jump. The state of video encoding back then was nowhere near where it is now, so the colors would bleed. And, of course, it was simply a stereo mix. So this is really an interesting experience going back and taking ADR work that we did so far back and repurposing it for this version. Wade Shimwell, who is the mixer for the 5.1 version, has done a phenomenal job. I watched the finished results just the other day and was stunned at how really nice this show sounded for something that was recorded under the conditions it was originally recorded on. You have to understand that when we did this show originally, ADV had only done a half dozen or so English language dubs, and this was only the second TV series we had started. We had just, a few months before this, started production on Blue Seed, which was our first commitment to a long show. Up until that point, we'd only done OVAs, and even the longest of those was like a 5-episode series. We had done Mighty Space Miners, we had done Samurai Showdown, we had done the first Devil Hunter Yoko, the first Burn Up, and the first 2 Gunsmith Cats, among others. And it was really an interesting experience going back in with the idea that we had this long format show with this storyline that was going to continue throughout that many episodes, and try and make it all continuous, because the trick about Ava, for those who are watching it for the first time, is there's a lot of double meaning in a lot of the lines. You have to watch the whole show all the way through and then come back again and watch it again. And you'll see things and hear things that you didn't hear the first time, because once you know where it's going, you'll suddenly realize that, oh, okay, what they said and what you originally interpreted it as meaning isn't what you thought it meant. This is especially true of the character of Ritsuko. She has a couple of lines that can only be attributed as just plain evil when you actually understand what she's actually referring to. So when we started working on this show, we wanted to bring in a bunch of new vocal talents specifically to differentiate it from Blue Seed. We had pretty much used up the leads from the previous couple of shows on Blue Seed, and we ended up using a couple of them over again. Kurt Stoll ended up playing Kinsuke and did a wonderful job, and it was a natural for it. And then we had also brought Amanda Wynn back. She was playing the lead in Blue Seed, and she was really wanting to play the part of Misato. And I was like, Amanda, I think another spunky character, it's going to be too close to what you're doing in some of the other shows, because she was also Rowley Vincent, and she was Yoko. And I really thought that Allison Keith, who had just started with us, was the ideal choice. Allison was someone who Amanda had met through an improv group, if I recall correctly, and had brought in to audition, and actually, I believe, made her first vocal appearance in Super Atragon. But she was, at the time, she had just been cast in Blue Seed as Sakura, and she just really had a natural flair for it, and she could also do a lot of things that were natural for Misato, like belch on cue, which turned out to be very useful. But anyway, Amanda was really dead set on Misato, and I said, honestly, Amanda, I've seen the show a couple of times. You want to play Rei. It's going to be a nice stretch for you, and she has never, ever regretted ending up taking the part of Rey, because, of course, Rey is such an iconic figure and is so immediately identified with Ava in people's minds. The other major female character, Asuka, people kept saying, who's going to play Asuka? It's going to be Tiffany Grant, isn't it? Because everybody who knew Tiffany and who knew the Asuka character said, there's just so much about Tiffany that just reminds us all of Asuka. Not saying she is Asuka, but there's a lot of Asuka in her. Plus, the fact was that Tiffany could actually speak German, and actually ended up writing the German dialogue for the show, because most of the German that Asuka speaks turned out to be pretty pidgin. In some cases, we're not even sure what they were trying to say, so we had to kind of reconstruct it from scratch. A lot of new people did start on the show, though. Gil Lundy, who plays Feudsky, this was pretty much his first major role for us. Tristan McAvery had done a few small parts, but this was his first major role. And Spike Spencer was brand new to us. He had done a few quick parts, and Spike will actually be on the commentary track later. We'll talk more about that then. But this was really only his second lead character. And casting Shinji was really, really difficult, because the Japanese performer was actually a woman. And we tried a number of women reading the part of Shinji. We tried some actual kids and found that the kids that we were able to find at that time simply didn't have the dramatic range. And the women all sounded too young. You can buy the Japanese Shinji, I think partially because he's speaking in Japanese, which is a little harsher language, and also because they were really lucky and they got a phenomenal performer who could play that low. These days, I don't think I'd have too much trouble finding a woman who could play Shinji, but at the time, we really felt that we needed someone who was very identifiably male, and Spike plays a 13-year-old fairly convincingly, I think. Even today, we went back and recorded the director's cuts, and I thought his work on those was superlative. And at the time, he was exactly right. His voice has dropped a little since then, but his voice at the time was very high, and said, yeah, okay, we buy that. That's a kid who's just gone through voice change, but it hasn't completely dropped yet. Yeah, and he's a phenomenal actor. He's a little on the hyper side, but we would be recording, and he would be bouncing around the booth, literally. He was, actually still is, very heavily into martial arts, and when he wasn't actually recording, would be in the booth stretching, doing push-ups and calisthenics. So it was kind of a weird situation where you got this character who is so physically repressed being played by this actor who is bouncing off the foam in the booth. We also had a lot of problems, and we'll talk about this when we get Spike on here later, with recording him naturally, because Shinji's range is so extreme. He goes from talking very soft to screaming at the top of his lungs, with basically no break between them. And in the days when we were doing this, the equipment we had was really sensitive to that kind of dynamic range. The kind of compression software and so on that's available today just wasn't there. So we would often have this wonderful take that would start off great and then have to cut in the middle of it with another take that was compressed differently in order to get the whole actor's line in without distorting, because we were always saying, well, that was a great take, but it's distorted. Let's do it again. That's something we don't have to deal with at all anymore. And I don't, I have great regrets about having left Wade here to clean this up, because when we originally did it, there was some stuff we left in. We're saying, well, it's a little on the distorted side, but it's the best read emotionally. And he's really been able to clean up a lot of that. Some of the other actors who came in on the show, really for the first time, Sue Ulu as Ritsuko. If I recall correctly, this was the first thing she ever did for us, and we tossed her into a lead, and she came out of it quite well. We also had Aaron Crone, who had done a small part, actually two small parts in Samurai Showdown, and then played the villainous Haints in Gunsmith Cats, and he was the villainous McCoy in the original Burn Up. But he hadn't done a whole lot for us, and we cast him as Kaji, and just a wonderful, wonderful blend of acting and image. Aaron is one of those actors who's always amazed me in that he was able to capture the nuances on the screen on the fly. He would see the character start making an expression, and it would show up in his voice almost instantaneously while he was doing a dry read. And when you actually went back and did the take, he was just dead on. Just a wonderful. Well, he was doing Murakumo as well in Blue Seed at this time, but Murakumo hadn't appeared, so technically he started Kashi about the same time he started Murakumo. Gosh, there were so many actors on this show. It seemed like we were... Oh, Joe Paisano was the original Toji. Toji was an interesting character problem for us because we actually had 3 Tojis over the course of the show. Joe was the original, and believe it or not, he ran off to join the circus. I've never heard anyone use that excuse before, but he did. He ran off to join the circus in the middle of the production, and we got him back once and did another set of episodes, and then we simply weren't able to contact him, and we brought in a second Toji who did 1 volume and did extremely well, and I'm not going to tell you which volume he took over in, but then he got an option to go to, opportunity to go to England to study with the Royal Shakespeare Company, so he was gone. So Brett Weaver took over as the 3rd Toji. Amazingly, that was the only voice changeover we had until we did the director's cuts, where obviously people had been gone for a number of years and we had to replace them. Another person who made basically a debut on the show was Kendra Benham playing Ibuki. Kendra and Spike were an item. They are since man and wife, which brings up one of the other Ava side stories, which is interesting, which is that the 3 original kids, played by Spike Spencer, Tiffany Grant, and Amanda Wynn, all ended up marrying the 3 original bridge crew, played by Kendra, Jason Lee, and Brian Gronvelt, which is actually myself working under a pseudonym. Just very strange that happened. Even odder is the fact that the Japanese director was actually dating Asuka at the time, and well, here I am, now married to Asuka. Go figure that one out. If you're wondering why I do record these parts under a pseudonym, it's because when we first started, it just seemed really strange to me to be putting my name on a show that I was already writing, directing, and producing. So I said, okay, I got to cut something off. So I stuck everything as a single credit, written, produced, and directed by, so my name wasn't on the screen 14 times. And then the only reason I was actually acting in these shows was that when we first started doing our shows, we weren't using a studio that we owned. It was an outside studio that we rented, and actors had a bad habit of not showing. Well, we had already had to pay for the hours we were in there, so I got into the habit of, first of all, writing a character into the script saying, okay, this character will be my character, and if someone doesn't show up, then I will step into the booth and record that voice. The other thing we did to fill that time was we got into the habit of bringing in people from around ADV to do background fill-in voices. And a lot of the voice acting you'll hear in the background, things like people screaming and that sort of thing, are actually people in the office while we're throwing bricks and things at them. Some of those people actually turned out to be really great actors, and you'll hear people like Doug Smith in the background, who went on to play Golden Boy, just one of the people in the art department with a natural gift for mimicking voices. And when Golden Boy came up, he really wanted to go for the part. We auditioned him, and he got it, but he had done a number of other things. And you'll hear Lorraine Reyes, who was the art director at the time, doing some of the background voices. She was probably the biggest Ava fan of anyone in the company at the time. She had seen the entire series in the raw Japanese and was kind of like our unofficial guru. Hey, Lorraine, what do you think about this? And she was like, well, blah, 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 blah. And if she didn't have an opinion, she'd call some of her friends who were also big Ava fans and kind of get us consensus back. At the same time, we were also getting feedback directly from Japan, although it was very strange and roundabout. I would write an ADR script, and it would get sent to Japan via one licensor, and then it would go round robin to like 3 or 4 of the licensors in Japan. and finally come back to me, usually a day after we had started recording, covered with little red pencil marks saying, oh, you need to change this, you need to change this, you need to change this. We actually did fix one of those for this edition. People who know the show will probably catch where we fixed it, because it was an error that the translator made that somehow went through a half dozen hands and never got caught until after the DVD was the VHS was released, and it stayed there until now, but we did fix it for this edition. That is the only new line recorded. But so we would get these things back with changes, and sometimes realize the changes meant redoing huge chunks of the show. So we would go through back and re-record things. We would have to change things around simply to accommodate some very odd wording changes. It's not that the wording that we were changing to was odd per se, except that it was like, okay, they're really specific about wanting to invert the positions of these two words. And that apparently made a big difference to them, so we would move things around. And we had a couple of things where we would get into arguments about, for example, the three kids, are referred to as the three children. But when you have them singular, one of them by themselves, the Japanese kept correcting the script to say, well, this is the first children, this is the second children, this is the third children. And we had to keep coming back saying, that just doesn't make sense in English. But sometimes you would get these things that they had decided they wanted for the English version. For example, the fact that the attacking entities are called the angels. Well, that's really not what the word in the Japanese translates to exactly. It's closer to something like emissary or maybe an apostle. But they really were fixated on the idea of having angel. And it works well in the context of the show. You need something like that to give it a dynamic. And if it was the emissaries or whatever, it just would not have had the same ring. So I give them full props for understanding that. On the other hand, there were occasions where you'd be going like, I don't really quite understand why you're doing this, but if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. If you'll notice, in between each and every one of the episodes, there'll be two titles, once in Japanese, once in English. They are not the same titles. The show has separate titles for the first and half of each episode, and each version has an English version and a Japanese version. They may match, they may not. So sometimes those aren't translation errors that people notice. It's the variations in what the two titles mean. All of this we had to deal with at a very breakneck production speed. We were initially starting off with 2 episodes at a time, and we would do them, send them out to be mixed by Paul Killam, who was doing the original mixes. And in between when we did the mixes and the final release, we would half the time get a correction come in that just absolutely had to be done. So we would have to go back and do it. It was very frantic. And this was in between working with a half dozen other shows at the same time. That's why Amanda Wynn came on as my co-director for the first dozen or so episodes of the show, because the way we were working at the time was that I would direct the key characters, and then she would go in and direct other scenes. And as we progressed, she started doing more of the key characters. But eventually, we came to the situation where I ended up directing the entire thing for the last batch of episodes. It was incredibly hectic, and I would never go back and do it that way again. But at the time, because of the nature of all the constant changes, it was the only way to keep things moving smoothly. And when I went back into the director's cuts, I was really actually kind of surprised at how smooth the last couple of episodes were compared to the earlier ones. And I think that's partially because our actors had gotten so much more accustomed to the process. I'm talking about recording the new versions of the dialogues. We had to re-record a lot of dialogues for the director's cut version, and partially because the intervening years had made it a lot more crystal clear as to what was really going on. I've had a lot of time to think about Ava and live with Ava in my head and go over it, and I've read a lot of stuff in between, things on Asian philosophy. And what really helped more than anything else was working on the show Gasaraki, where it was a similar situation to Eva, where we were working very closely with the creators, but without the buffer of a half dozen licensors between us. And on Gasaraki, I was fortunate I could actually send an email, and it would go to the person who actually did something. And they set me on a lot of trains of thought, research that really helped understand what the dynamic they were really going for as an undercurrent. And once I had that idea, that's what they were trying to do, I could look back and say, okay, this is also what they were trying to do on Ava. At the time when I was doing Ava originally, it was more a question of, okay, I know the story points, and I know where it ends, and I know the double meanings on everything. I'd watched the show twice all the way through with the full translations. But just because I knew what was going to happen, what was going on, there were some elements that you come back and think afterwards, like, there's so many potential meanings in there. And I think initially my first time through, I was very literal. And then the second time through, I got a little bit maybe too metaphysical on the meaning. But it all came out pretty well. It's an interesting show because a lot of what people react to in Ava, frankly, are red herrings. There's a lot of stuff that's put out there that appears to have a great deal of meaning that doesn't really have as much meaning as they would like you to believe, but they're trying to make you think. They're trying to make your brain function a little bit more efficiently. And so if they throw a lot of things out there that don't necessarily connect completely, it still accomplishes the goal of putting into your mind that, okay, look around the corners, look underneath things. This is an interesting bit right here. I'd completely forgotten about some of these things until we did the director's cut. And I'd forgotten that one of the big problems we had was that a lot of the sound effects work we were getting wasn't complete. And one of the things we found that was missing was, strangely enough, the sound effects of the Ava, which, as we go into the next episode, they make this long screaming sound, which if you actually take the Japanese version and pitch it up, you realize it's actually an actor just sitting there on the soundstage making the sounds. And I ended up doing all of those for the series. I had completely forgotten about that until we did the director's cut. And there was a bit where we had to do it. Like, oh my God, I'd forgotten about that. But that's the problem you run into when you're working on a show that's being done on that kind of rush basis. Is you get materials and you're like, oh, okay, do we have everything? It looks like everything's there. And then while you're recording in the booth, you're like, ooh, you know what? There's a sound effect missing there. That coffee cup sound's not there. It's a minor thing, but we ended up folding a lot of that stuff live. And now that we're going back and doing the director's cut and that those effects are actually in there, we're having to cut that stuff back out again. It's kind of funny. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this section and bring in Mr. Spike Spencer.
The Ava triumphs, but this angel is only the beginning. Worried about Shinji's mental.
And we're back, and this time I'm here with Spike Spencer.
Hello.
Spike, believe it or not, from that deep baritone voice, was the voice of Shinji Ikari.
That was me, yes.
And it's a character that kind of came back to haunt you over and over again, didn't it?
Every time I would do a convention, anywhere, yes, I always get it. Hi, Shinji. No, I'm Spike. No, Shinji. No, it's Spike.
Yeah. So I'm trying to recall. This was like the third thing you ever did for ADV. I know you came in. You first started with us on Gunsmith Cats. On the second one, did a couple little bits.
Super Atragon. First thing I ever did for you
Super
guys.
Atragon, right. There's a little bit in there in Super Atragon. And then Gunsmith Cats. And then Suikoden. You were the lead in Suikoden. And
I love that one.
And then here you were on this one suddenly with lead in the series. This was actually the second series we ever did. So it was a whole new experience. And, of course, I was co-directing at this point with Amanda Wynn, who has since become Amanda Wynn Lee.
Yes. She's the whole reason I'm even doing this.
Yeah, you guys were in an independent feature film together, right?
Yes, that no one ever saw.
Yeah, there's a lot of those going around, I've noticed.
If you ever see it, it's called Imposters. And it's, well, I don't know if it's out there or not. If it is, let me know. I'm due some money.
Oh, well, that's always important to know. So, I'm trying to remember putting myself back in the time. We were doing this. This was one of the first shows we were recording in the new ADV studios that were actually here at the Bentliff location, as opposed to over at the old studios.
That was back when it was one studio, wasn't it?
One studio, yeah.
One little bitty studio.
And that was actually when the studio only had a single booth in it. And I remember we were having a lot of trouble on this show trying to figure out how to mic you, as there were so many screams and so on going on. Every time you screamed, it would just kind of bleed over, and we were like, okay, and, well, try moving further away from the mic. And, no, okay. Did a lot of screaming in that first episode.
There was a lot of screaming. I lost our voice quite a few times.
Of course, that was then followed by the couple of episodes there where you basically didn't say anything except walked around and sighed quite a bit.
I sighed and I screamed. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is a nice bit in the episode, I think it's 3, where you're just walking around. I'd completely forgotten that there was a movie playing in the theater that you were sitting in, and you, besides being Shinji watching the movie, you were also some kind of scientist in the movie. You were doing a German accent.
Yeah, the German bar, yes.
And to make it even more twisted, Amanda Wynn was in the movie yelling something, and at the same time, she and Jason were necking in the row in front of you, which we recorded very simply by putting them together in a booth and letting them have at it.
Mac down. And you left the room, I'm sure.
And I left the room, yeah. Yes. And
nothing but a box of prophylactics and a spatula. So anyway.
Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff like that we were doing on Ava, though. I remember we stuck you in the background quite a bit because you would just get so like, okay, I need to do something to get some energy.
Anything else, yeah. Yes. We had some fun ones on that. I don't remember what all we did as far as the background. I remember a couple of them. The German guy, I remember. And that was a lot of fun.
You did a dog. You did Scooby-Doo.
That's right.
Yeah, because there was the one bit where the Japanese joke was that in Japanese the sound a dog makes is wan wan, and so they had all these multiplication things. It was the arithmetic dog, so we had substituted the old talking dog, what's got texture of sandpaper stuff, and you can actually hear all this stuff in the show if you listen real close. Mm-hmm. There's nothing going on. So let's see, what you're saying, how you got into it with Amanda. Exactly how'd you get into acting in general?
Well, oddly enough, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was going to take some drama courses because I was going to be a lawyer, because that's where the money was. And I took some drama as I auditioned, got the lead in the first play I ever auditioned for. It was Charlie's Aunt, and I was hooked. That was it. From then on, I've known I want to be an actor. I went straight through high school, went to U of H drama school, 4 years, studied with some of the best teachers in the world back then, and went pro after a few years in college, and been doing it ever since.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been hearing your voice on the radio here in Houston for as long as I can remember. I mean, you're the voice of Wieners, which is was a department store chain.
Yes, that was fun.
And you were the voice of Astroworld for a while, weren't you?
1 year. Yeah, they kept me for 1 year, and I think I was too expensive for them. I don't think they liked me. I had a hard-ass agent. We really reamed them. They didn't want to pay me on certain things, and my agent said, I don't think so. So I didn't do it again, but it was fun. It was all right. Lots of radio spots. I've done, tons of that, but ADV is a fun outlet, though. I mean, you guys get to do this kind of stuff. I don't really get to scream a whole lot in my everyday life, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you've done quite a few characters besides Shinji. I know we kind of turned the casting on its side with Akito and Nadesco. It was kind of like, okay, this is the guy that Shinji would be if he had any kind of gumption whatsoever.
That was fun. But the second Nadesco that we just did,
the movie, yeah,
it was that was a total different thing. I wasn't expecting that, but it was all right. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this.
Well, I mean, we're talking about everything in general. So I'm trying to think of some of the other shows you've done.
One of my favorites was, not Gunsmith. It was a Blue Seed, the one where I played Jackalhead.
That was Jackalhead was Burn Up W.
Burn Up W, that's it. That's one of my favorites of all time. And me and Amanda always were like, that's fun. That was really crazy. And that one, Suikoden Takateru. I like that one. And another one that I really, really enjoyed was Little Boy.
Yeah, Spriggan.
in Spriggan. Did that ever come out, by the way? I mean,
Well, yeah, it did. It did play in the theaters briefly. Unfortunately, it opened in the theaters 2 weeks after 9/11, which is the wrong time for that show.
pretty much.
It's done astonishingly well on home video, though. It's done really, really well.
Great.
But,
Yeah, I enjoyed doing that. I saw it the other night, and I don't remember any of it. I was, hammered. But the thing was, I did see it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is coming back and look at these things after all this time. It's like, I don't even remember doing that, but I guess we did it because it's on tape.
Exactly. I really, I have to go back and look at my resume and see what I did. I don't remember. I do remember doing that one. I don't remember what it was, but I just came in. We did a whole bunch of different voices. I did the old English maid. And very Monty Python-esque.
That was the Golden Boy. I think it was
Golden
the second
Boy.
one, yeah.
That was so much fun
Where you were
to do.
the radio truck.
The radio truck. He won't urinate through his skin like a shark. He'll bake you bread. And but my favorite when we all got in the booth.
Yes.
Back when we had that one booth, we had 6 or 7 people in the booth, and we're all
beating the crap
out of each
Smith,
other
yeah.
at the very end and go, "I want to live in America," and it made it through the cut.
Yeah, it made it all the way through.
That was funny.
Yeah, that's how that stuff works. It's the most random things that show up.
Oh, it is. It's just fun when you come in and you don't really know what you're saying. Sometimes when we come in, we don't have the lines. What was that one we just did? It was just my boss smells hot vinegar.
Puni poemi, yeah. That was great.
Did I get all 3 of those voices? Or
no,
not?
because I'd already cast the other 2 guys, and so it was kind of like I played it for everybody, and everyone was just cracking up, and they all agreed. Yeah, you could sort of vaguely hear Spike in there, and so it already promised the other 2 parts, and it came out well. But
which one did I get? Did I get the deep, weird one?
Vinegary. That was just the most surreal voice.
My boss smells hot vinegar.
I always find it fascinating that you did Shinji on the one hand, and then you did the pedophile in Excel Saga on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Which may be probably the single most disturbing character.
Well, it's probably, if you think about it, it might be Shinji when he grows up. You never know.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Except, of course, as we all know, Shinji never does grow up because everybody dies.
Yeah.
We never really do find out, depending upon which version.
Man. That was fun. Well, I just did another one. I played a real Zen character. It was with Steven. I don't remember what it was, but I wish
Super Milk Chan?
No. It was Sayuki.
Oh, Sayuki, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really liked playing that one because it was really kind of zen and cool and just kind of relaxed. I don't get a chance to do many deep voices very often, though, but I've got a little cold right now, so that's why it's a little extra deep. But I'd like to do more deep voices, if you don't mind.
Yeah, because, of course, you had to come back and match to Shinji when we just did the director's cuts, and that was interesting after all that time.
It's very difficult, because if I don't get it just right, I sound like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, actually, the comments on that the director's cut have been really good. People have said, wow, you can tell it matches well, but there's a depth that wasn't there before, and I guess it's just you lived with Shinji for so long.
Yeah,
he's been kind of lurking back in the head.
It's a very, very odd. I mean, I really that's the character I identify with most with anime. Period. Was this one? I spent more time with this one than anything else because we were just starting out. It took us longer. We were really trying to get our legs down, and now we can come in here and we know what we're doing.
Yeah,
we're really good at it.
This show, for those who are listening to this, it took us nearly 2 years to dub the show, and that was partially because we were only doing 2 episodes at a time, and it was just intermixed with a bunch of other shows. We were doing Blue Seed and Ava and Burn Up W and Gunsmith Cats and the Devil Hunter Yokos and all those at the same time, and plus a bunch of standalones.
Well, it was fortunate because on those, I wasn't really doing any big roles on any of them. I had some pretty smaller roles on, each one of those ones you just mentioned. I had a little one here, a little one there. So
on those, there were a couple of big ones. So like you were Yugo in Battle Angel, which was quite a large character.
Yes, I remember that was good.
And boy,
we did Fire Emblem too.
Fire Emblem, yeah,
and that was a good one. I remember that. That was pretty.
Yeah,
good.
One of those ones where they never finished it in Japan, so it's kind of like it's not much of an ending, but
there you go. But
it was a fun show. But but yeah, it took us forever. I think we did 2 episodes at a time through the 18th episode, and then went to 3 episodes at a time to wrap it up there at the end, something like that. but it was...
It was a long one. It definitely was a long haul.
Yeah, I can remember you getting really frustrated with Shinji over the period. It's like, the character does not evolve. He keeps sliding back.
It's so emasculating. I mean, really. You come in and like, okay, back then I was pretty buff, I was working out, I'm feeling pretty good. I come in, all right, and then I just gotta be a wuss. I had to show my softer side, and it was, it was fine. It's character. Like anything else, you play it, but after a while, you just,
Yes, I remember when we finally finished it, and the ad-lib that you did at the end, the alternate ending. And since, assuming probably everybody in the Western Hemisphere who's going to see Ava has seen it now, you might want to reprise some of that. But it was...
I just heard it the other day when I was showing a friend, some of the stuff, and I said, I came across it in a box. Oh, no, I didn't really even had that. And played it, and it was just... I have no idea what I said, but it's something like... everywhere it all ends. Everybody's standing on a model of the Earth or whatever it was, saying congratulations. And I'm about to lose my mind trying to figure out what the hell just happened. I'm like, excuse me, is this it? Is that all there is? Is that the end? I mean, I'm kind of alone here. Does a bus run through here? I mean, come on. There's got to be more. It was bizarre, man. It was just so funny at the end because it was just...
I know, 2 years of work and it ends there and you're like...
You gotta be kidding me.
What was that?
I just sacrificed so much. Okay, whatever.
So, anyway...
Excuse me. Woo!
Any other things you can remember from that time period? Because quite honestly, I remember very little working on Ava at this point. I remember being in an extreme state of panic most of the time, running back and forth with script corrections coming over from Japan and going, I got to change this.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten a lot smoother now, it seems. I come in, you're much more relaxed. We did have a lot of cutting up time, but you really want to get this thing done. And but once we got into it near the end of it, it was a pretty cool thing. We come out, we just kind of BS for a while, talk about movies and everything while it was syncing up and everything. But now all the equipment's much faster, and we can really just move. So there's not really all that lag around time, which is great for you guys business wise. But I don't know, it kind of loses a little bit of the love now.
Yeah, I like this little bit right here. It's pretty funny if you actually listen to it. Supposedly Shinji lost, but Misato had scissors, and Shinji had stone. So wait a second,
something's wrong there.
Something's wrong there. Yeah.
I thought they both had scissors for a second there.
It's something like that, but it's like, wait a second.
Well,
someone's cheating.
Is Allison coming in to read on this?
Allison will. It won't be on this volume. It'll be on one of the later volumes, I think.
She's got the best voice. I just loved her voice on this. It was so much fun. I didn't even know who she was for the longest time because we never get to meet each other that often.
Yeah, and both of you guys came in via Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
She had been
there's my skinny little ass. Who says I don't do nudity?
And there's the great beer can / toothpicks gag coming on here. But yeah, you guys both had known Amanda, and she had been Allison had been in an improv group with Amanda, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, actually, the guy who was running that improv group, Chris Ayers, and his brother Greg is working here a lot now, and I went to school with Chris at U of H, and we actually used to do some different comedy bits together at some clubs when we were coming up, and I went to college with him, and that's how I met Amanda actually before this at one time when I was looking to put together a comedy troupe here in Houston. And I went to see them one night, and Chris was there. I said, hi, how you doing? And he introduced me to Amanda, and then I ended up talking to Jason later on, and then Amanda and I got it was just, we knew one way or the other we had to meet up and become friends.
Well, that's the whole 6 Degrees in Houston, where everybody in the acting community, they may not have met, but they seem to have worked with the same people. I mean, it's just, it's not that it's that small an acting community. It just seems like the same people show up all over the place.
Yeah. There's certain ones here that, this is a decent town for acting, but you're not going to get a lot of movie roles. But there's a lot of voiceover. ADV's here, and that's a big one now. It's just getting bigger and bigger. But, you do a lot of radio spots, some commercials here and there. Every now and then do a film. And
because I know you and Tiffany have actually ended up doing several radio spots together, oddly enough.
Absolutely. absolutely. Done some some interesting ones, as I know.
Yes,
the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
that never made it to air.
Yeah, that was rather interesting.
Yeah.
It was Shinji and Asuka having sex, basically.
Basically, that's what it was, man.
You know, and it was for.
It was an AIDS awareness.
AIDS awareness, right?
Yeah. It was an interesting spot, and of course they did not like it, so they pulled it. But it's not going on my demo reel.
Yeah, yeah, but you know,
it was fun. Hey, I got paid.
Exactly, and one of these days it'll surface on the internet.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure
they always do.
Oh, I've done things when I first started acting that I pray doesn't make it. I got boobs there. Look at that. I was just looking at it, and it's like, I thought that was Misato, but no, that was me. Very sad.
Very. Yeah, well, that stuff always shows up. It's like, if you're listening to the internet now, you can find things like Casey Kasem or the Thundercats bloopers. I just find quite amazing to hear Snarf cursing like a sailor. It's like, okay, that's just wrong. I'm sorry.
I used to watch Thundercats. I liked Thundercats. Well, it's been a ride so far. I just can't wait to see what the next big thing is going to be. And I mean, this one has seemed to really stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's held up really well. The animation is not as spectacular as a lot of the newer shows, but I think what Ava does so well is they ask a lot of questions and never answer them, so people have to keep asking and say, well, maybe if I watch it again, I'll figure this thing out this time. And
Which is good.
I think a lot of it is they're purely red herrings, intentionally there, so people say, well, that's got to mean something. It means something. It's got to mean something. Well, not necessarily.
Well, it's like watching Star Wars, the originals, the original 3 series. I mean, they got a little bit better technologically, but they were still good. They were all good. I'll watch those over and over again before I'll watch the last 2. Technically, the last 2, outstanding, superior, but the story's not there. So the technology can really push things forward, but if you don't have the story, you don't have the story. This is a whacked story, don't get me wrong. But look at that. I mean, it was some wild stuff. Very, very wild. Fun doing.
Yeah. Somewhere in here, I remember, was the scream that almost killed you.
Yeah.
I think it's right towards the end of it. There was one scream I remember. You just came up in a bloody, racking cough after doing it. It was like you just burned your throat out. We were doing these pretty tight.
Oh, well, we did them a lot. And, every now and then if we had to do one show and then do another show the next day, we'd blow our voices out. We wouldn't be able to do the show the next day. So it was really difficult to deal with. But, we're in there. We're screaming. This is acting. We're doing it. It's not just, there's not some special way you do it. I mean, you really just have to hit it and hit it right and make it sound right. And if you don't, well, you do it again. And you just keep doing it until you get it right. And it can really take a toll.
Yeah, and back then also, just with the equipment we were using, and it's not like the equipment has changed that much. It's just the storage has become so much more. We used to have a lot of problems that you would start a little late or whatever, and you would come in early and it would be a great screen, but only get the last half of it and couldn't recover it.
Yeah.
And now we can run with a buffer so we can catch stuff that came in early or whatever, so you don't worry about that.
Oh, I hated that. I'd scream and I'd say, man, that sounded perfect. And you'd say, yeah, it did sound perfect, but we didn't get it. Damn. It's very difficult to do.
That doesn't happen so much anymore, thank God.
Yeah, definitely.
The whole process has been really pared down and redone so many times.
Well, I'd really like to do something, another series like this that has a character that's so memorable because we've done so many of them, but we just don't have the popularity of this, and I'd really love to have one that actually gets more popular than I think this was the 3rd ranked, series of all time on anime. Is that correct?
It depends upon who's your preference. I mean, I think most people will say it's one of, if not the best. And it really depends upon your point of view.
Certainly.
And what happens is that top 5 position changes all the time, but Ava is always there on the top of that list. It doesn't move. And then there's whatever the flavor of the month is, will come up and go down and come up and go down. But Ava continues to be a top seller, and more importantly, fans coming into anime still go and watch Ava. It's not like, oh, okay, it's old, it's not the hot thing anymore.
Right.
It's one of those few titles that people just say, well, you have to watch Ava.
Right. I think this is where the scream was. Coming up.
It's the oops. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. That was the big scream. Which carries over into the shot nicely.
But I think I screamed every episode.
You screamed multiple times every episode, and I remember on that one particular scream, though, I don't remember how many takes we did on it.
Yeah, that was one of the original ones because I think that was probably actually the first time I had ever actually screamed in the series. I think there were some other small screams, but really a blood-curdling scream. So we really had to work out the technical aspects of that, and it was kind of interesting because blood-curdling screams are not really my forte.
Or they weren't up until that point.
No, I'm getting better. I'm screaming like a little girl now, so that's really good. That'll take you far.
Yeah, well, there's always that market.
This freaking song, in my nightmares, man. I mean, it's a great song, but this particular version just haunted me forever. Keep me up at night, man. Oh.
Yeah, you just kind of wonder. It's like, okay, initially it starts off pretty good, but as the episodes go and the different actors are giving shots at doing it in the Japanese version, and a couple of them, let's just be kind and say that they can't carry a tune. And it's like, why did you put that on there? You're kind of wondering. You get that thing in your head. You just want to take an ice cream scoop and scoop it out of your brain. Mm-hmm. That's what it did to me. That's exactly what it did. And the funny thing is, of course, at our wedding we had them sing this. Of course, it was not at the wedding. We had it actually the reception afterwards. We joked about it. No, not at the wedding. No.
No.
So,
did you have some Japanese guys come in and sing it?
No, it was Jay Hickman, which is as close as you could get.
There you go. Okay, well, that's fine.
Jay looks very Japanese. Okay, and that's it. That was great.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
That's
all we got to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you much for coming in.
And I played the role of Asuka Langley Soryu. Charmed, huh?
And I am Allison Keith, and I play the role of Misato Katsuragi. How you doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm afraid I always have the temptation to sing along with the opening song, but I will not do that today.
It is quite tempting.
Gosh, it was back in 97 when we recorded this episode.
97.
Yeah, so it's been 7 years. I haven't ever waited this long to do a commentary on anything.
Yeah, this is like really having to reach back.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun.
And this would be your first commentary, Allison?
This would be. As Matt put it so eloquently, I'm a commentary virgin.
Woohoo!
It's very Mystery Science 2000, isn't it?
It is. It's funny that there was a period there when there was no Ava. Like, we finished the TV show, and then it was years before we did the movies. So there was this gap of no Ava-ness, and then it just keeps coming back. And I think we're going to be doing Ava for the rest of our lives now.
Absolutely. And as I'm very grateful for that, because it's really fun to come back and see some of the old ADV members that, really started when it was much smaller than it is now,
Yeah, that's so true. But
it's always fun to come back into the booth, but it does seem, I was laughing with Matt earlier, that it seems literally, once every 2 months, we've got this, something for Ava.
There's some new Ava thing coming along. And this version is going to be the super spiffy, ultra platinum version, a must-have for all real Ava fans.
So there.
I'm assuming everyone listening to this will have seen this episode 20, 30, 40 times probably already.
This is episode 8, right?
Episode 8, Asuka Strikes. And so, Allison, why do you think that when Misato was going on this government mission that she's taking, besides the third child, Shinji, his buddies, Kinsuke and Toji, along with him? Is that like a field trip?
I think so. I think that's somewhat the mentor in hers, constantly, being somewhat of a mother figure, I guess. I don't know.
I always thought that was really funny.
It's funny, yeah. Except I don't see a sack lunch and a canned drink,
Yeah, I know. They should have had to bring their little obento, their little box lunches with them.
Give me a break.
Oh, yeah, and that's Phil Ross, the captain of the ship there. He's complaining about all of the children.
Absolutely.
There's Asuka!
There she is!
In her famous yellow sundress.
Very Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, I must have seen a gazillion kids cosplaying in that sundress at conventions by now.
Oh, I bet you have.
Yeah, it's a classic.
That would be.
Oh, little Kinsuke. That's Kurt Stoll, and he was so awesome in this part.
And that's a really good friend of mine, Joe Pisano.
I was going to say, and Joe Pisano, the original Toji.
The original Toji. Great, great friend of mine. Hysterical guy.
And, the initial confrontation.
Well, hello, Misato. How? Just fine. Goodness, you've grown so much.
Yes, and her figure's filled out as well.
That it has.
I love this scene, actually. And,
I remember saying that name like that when that read. Oh my gosh, that was 7 years ago you said? I, for some reason, remember going, Oscar Langley saw you. Like, it was a very interesting name. I remember just having a good time reading it.
now, there's something interesting. In this scene, I got to use a lot of German words, especially when I was yelling at Toji. And that was a very early decision that we had made about her.
And that didn't really, that ended at some point, didn't it? Or did it? I mean, I know that I remember it being such a German influence in the very beginning.
Right. Well, it was intermittent, just wherever it fit in. And the thing was that she was from Germany and she spoke German. And so we had kind of decided that when she got really mad, she was going to yell at people in German.
Oh, how funny.
What I call the Ricky Ricardo effect. But I think it played very well.
It did.
And most of the stuff that I said wasn't actually really dirty until Amanda let me say something in the movies that was... But I won't repeat it right now.
No, we'll save that.
We'll save that for another time.
Gosh, hearing some of these old people it's really awesome to go back.
It's super. I love it. And I tell you what, in Misato's outfit, I love her little beret thing. She's the only one that gets to wear the beret.
Yeah, she really does. She has a really fabulous hat.
And she works that beret. I mean...
Oh, don't doubt that. With her little bangs split in the middle, it's quite cute.
It's very super duper for her. And this is where we will notice that Asuka is the only one of the child pilots that always has on those little things on her head. She always wears them.
Are they ponytails? Have we decided that, or what?
No, I mean, it's just the same. It's the same, those nerve connector things that Rei and Shinji have to use when they're in their Avas.
But when they're in their Avas, right.
Yeah. And I don't know, she's just using them as some kind of decoration.
And here comes the boyfriend, the ex.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, Aaron Crone, you have to love that man.
He's so dreamy. You know, Allison, when we had to do that additional dialogue a while back for the director's cut.
Yes.
I got to be in the studio in New York when Aaron was recording his lines.
Oh, my... I bet that was quite steamy.
I was going like all Asuka, and Matt was just rolling his eyes.
I bet he was.
This is so funny. Like, why are they all in the elevator at the same time? I mean, they couldn't take turns. You know?
Look at the Toji's nose and mouth smushed up.
I know. Watch where you're putting your hands. Oh, the big embarrassing scene.
It totally looked like they were playing footsies right there.
I know.
Doesn't it?
Oh, Aaron so shines in this part.
That he does.
I love this.
You know, Aaron and I went to college. Actually,
I love that. Is she still so loud in bed? That's great. I'm sorry. You went to college?
I'm sorry. Yeah, no. When I did a show with Aaron, actually he was out of college, but I did a show at University of Houston with him, and he is just one of the nicest people I have met, and really fun to work with. Haven't seen him in many years.
He's still fabulous.
Good.
He probably thought I was completely deranged. Like, that girl doesn't realize she isn't Asuka in real life.
But you own it, sister, and that's all that matters.
I know. Oh, I remember vividly doing this and trying to get the sound in my voice that she's swinging.
Swinging.
Yeah.
Matching the feet.
That was fun.
Too much pride's bad.
That's really fun. I think a lot of people maybe watching this, I'm sure that you kind of hear all the crazy voices, and of course how we came up with Pin's voice and that kind of thing. But those are really some of the most enjoyable parts of being a voice actor is, there's great dialogue, especially when there's great writing. But, making those voices on the sides, like truly swinging your feet and that's really, really a fun part of doing this.
It really is, and trying to figure out how you do it. I mean,
Absolutely.
There's not really a bar that you can swing on in the recording studio.
But if there were a camera, isn't it true, Tiff, that people would just crack up at some of what we have to do, like
I'm
facially?
so glad that there isn't a camera because it would be very embarrassing.
Yes. And here's her little attitude. I love her. She's so fun. Did you enjoy playing her?
Oh, gosh. It was really the best. When I did this first episode here, I had no idea what would become of all of that. Asuka was already, not just Asuka, but the whole thing, Evangelion was already quite a big thing in Japan when we were recording this, but not as big as it would become, or maybe it's still not as big as it's going to become. I don't know. It's still...
Who knows? As much as we're coming back in for it, it's really something to be a part of. I was thinking about it, and I know we started this in 1995, so it's been 9 years, I believe. Am I wrong?
Well, when we started doing this show, it was in 96.
This show, it was 96.
Yeah. We were working on Blue Seed in 95, though.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But this was 96. Okay, well, I was off a year.
96, and then we, kind of towards the tail end of 96, and then we wrapped it up at the beginning of 98.
Absolutely.
So that was a little over a year, interspersed with other projects that we were doing
exactly simultaneously.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's just such a relief. I almost hope it never does, because it's really always fun to come back to something that you know so well. And
it is.
Kind of fits like a glove.
And I should tell you that I love Misato. Apart from obviously my own character, Misato is far and away my favorite character in the show.
Is it really?
Even, dare I say, even more than Kashi.
Oh, how dare you? Really? That's
the
great.
secret is out. It's terrible. I
Now
can't
they
believe I just said
know.
that. I know.
Oh, that'll be everywhere, Tiff.
I know. But I do love Misato. She's fabulous. She's really, I think she's a good role model for Asuka, and I think it was a good influence for
I think
her
they have
be.
a really nice balance between each other.
I can see in a way kind of Asuka being a younger version of Misato.
Right.
Misato has also got that kind of fiery, very independent attitude.
She does. I think she just has a little more responsibility at this time in her life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where she has to kind of buck up and take care of what's what.
Absolutely. And so I hope that for Asuka's future that, when she grows... I love that.
That was a great
Oh,
scene.
I know. He's in a girl's plug suit.
Shinji. Very nice.
Oh, can we talk about Spike? Can we just talk about him?
Can we? Do you love, how long and have I known and much just want to sop him up with a biscuit?
Oh, Spikeroo. You know what's funny is I didn't even know Spike very much when we were doing Ava. I didn't really get to know him very much at all until after we did Ava. I would just pass him, coming in and out of the studio.
Right.
Hi Spike, how are you doing? I didn't really even know him at all, which is amazing when I watch this show and see the relationship between Asuka.
Between yourself and Spike's and Shinji.
Yeah. The Asuka and Shinji had this relationship. Now, see all of that stuff that's in German. It was in German in the Japanese version. It was just more difficult to understand.
Right. Interesting. Spike and I actually go way back, just following up with him. And we didn't realize it until we came back. It started ADV together. But like you said, same thing, passing each other in the hall or passing each other in the halls and hearing him going, God, I recognize that voice. And we realized that I think I was a freshman in high school, and I'm not really sure how his age. We took a workshop, an acting workshop here in Houston. And I mean, went back like this and realized we'd spent like almost a whole summer together doing this workshop. And it's just so small, how small this world is.
Yeah, well, the theater community in Houston, everybody is sort of connected. There's not
Very much so.
There's not really very many degrees of separation. If there's someone that you haven't worked with, then you've worked with someone
Someone who knows that person.
who knows that person or who's worked with that person. Absolutely.
Very true.
It's a funny thing about this series that whenever there's something really serious going on,
There's
a lot of
something
times,
silly in behind, right?
a lot of times that is the case. But the storylines, I always enjoy the storylines, especially when Asuka gets to kick butt.
That's right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Oh yes, she's gonna fix everything by wrecking all of these ships. Oh my gosh, I have a cool a model of the Unit 2 with that big like covering thing, and the Ava is sort of wearing it like a cloak, and then just like, you know,
It opens up.
Yeah, like see how it's sort of wrapped around it like
Right.
like a cloak, like it's a superhero thing, like a cape. I don't know. I just love that. And then flings it off. Oh, it's so awesome. Ah, wow.
I love the music. Doesn't that always make you happy?
The music in this show is so awesome.
I know.
It's very stirring. You know, there was one time a few years ago that there was some like advertisement, just like a general anime thing on the Sci-Fi Channel, and they had this shot of the Unit 2 like running, or just some like really super action thing, running and fighting and whatever, and I started jumping up and down in my living room going, "There's my Unit 2! My Unit 2!"
You're such a proud mama.
I know, like it's really me inside of the thing. That's stupid, but I'm very attached to
well,
it.
I think it's great that you're attached, and I feel the same way about this series and quite a few series. I actually just did a series that I enjoyed so much. I haven't heard much about, but Rune Soldier. Just some of the characters. You know, there's some that you just relate with that you absolutely can become completely connected to.
Yeah, and once you get, I don't know, in a way you stay like connected with all of your characters, like they're all some little compartmentalized part
of you.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That's really it's another just perk of being able to do this for a job. It's really awesome.
Absolutely. Oh man, we're kicking some angel butt. I
just remember when we recorded early on in all of these scenes, I mean, just screaming for hours at a time, you know?
There was a lot of screaming.
Lots
For
of screaming.
sure. For sure, there was a lot of screaming. Oh yeah.
I love that's kind of a role reversal where you're telling me, you know, Misato, what's what at the time.
I know.
Making your entrance and making it proud.
Yeah, I think a lot. Well, I mean, you know, Asuka goes off like this a bunch of times in the series where she just thinks, well, this needs to be done, and she just goes off and does it. Sometimes it works out okay, sometimes not so
Right.
much, but the thing is that in the end, the children are the only ones that can pilot these things, so they do have a little bit of an advantage there because they're needed.
Right, and going back to when you said, you know, that Asuka, about our characters and how they relate, I always did feel that Misato related well with the younger characters because I think that she still kind of lived vicariously through them, age-wise, and kind of their experiences, and didn't want to let go of that, you know?
Right, and, you know, when you look at what happened to her when she was their age, the horrible thing of going
Absolutely.
through the second impact and losing her father and everyone she
Yep.
knew and all of that.
I think she kind of is trying to grasp onto her youth. I think that added a really neat element to her.
Yeah, so, I mean, she's supposed to be their guardian and their supervisor, but sometimes she may not be their best role model, but she's kind of like their partying big sister
Exactly.
instead
It's more of a big sister feel.
Yeah. And that's probably more of what they need than a replacement parent at this point, since they're 14.
Very good point. I think you're right.
Does that mean that Ava's been eaten?
You know, do you find yourself enjoying doing voiceovers as much as in the beginning, or more, or you know, with all of your
I don't
experience?
know. I think it's always great, honestly. I mean, I don't think I could ever get tired of this. And I'll certainly never stop loving Asuka. I mean, I just think she's the best. She's great. And it was a thrill to get to play a really complex character, which I think is a great thing about this show, that we all had really interesting, complex characters.
Absolutely. They were very three-dimensional. I mean, there were times, and I think that's what I loved most about this series is giving them real-life qualities, and I think that's why the fans relate so well, because there's a little bit of everybody in each one of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's the way they deal with turmoil and jubilation and all of the,
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very primal thing, like, what is my purpose? What am I here for? How do I relate to other human beings? It's all of that stuff, so you can't get much more basic than that.
Isn't it funny? We all think that we want to go so much, off the beaten path, but when it comes down to it, the message is always kind of the same, that we all just kind of want to be accepted, as cheesy as that is right now. Do I have a little background music with that comment?
I think so.
But I
They're
think,
looking for acceptance. I mean, even Asuka, who seems to, push everybody away, and Shinji won't let anyone in the first place, and
right.
they still want to be a part, and they want to belong and find where they fit in. You see, their relationship has gotten off to a really whiz-bang start there.
I like that whiz-bang.
Well, it kind of fits. I mean, not a dull moment to be had here. And, of course, they're counting down to the final seconds when we will find out, will they defeat the angel or won't they?
We wait in the rafters.
That's right, and Misato is in command.
And giving commands, firm commands.
That's right, she's always in control, even though they may not have a very good chance. She's always in charge. It's kind of funny that this is how they meet, but I think it's a really good way to introduce her into the series, and I love the fact that the episode is called Asuka Strikes, because as soon as she gets into the show, it's just
it's
really
balls,
escalate.
and she really brings that element of like balls to the walls. You know what I
Right.
mean, from the get-go.
Absolutely.
And it needed that.
Yeah, everything was just sort of building to something for the first 7 episodes, and it was building to this.
Aww.
Now it's calm and peaceful.
My.
And there's Ritsuko,
Su'ulu.
Mm-hmm.
You're apologizing? Are you okay?
Not always what she seems, this Dr. Akagi.
Isn't that true?
Don't want to give away any spoilers, though. Some people watching this may not have seen the whole series yet.
Absolutely.
As crazy as that is to think, but actually, I get letters and meet people all the time that tell me they've just seen Ava, which isn't that weird? Because I mean, we did it like so many years ago,
Right.
and I've just seen it for the first time. But that's the magic of film
Or DVD or things that can
Right.
be replayed and played for the first time.
Yeah, we'll be 70 years old and meeting people, and they'll be going, I just saw Ava for the first time.
Absolutely.
That's going to be great. It will be something that will endure, I definitely
I
think.
really enjoy meeting people that have seen it and know, so much about it, because they always even, bring such a great new perspective, and take on it than the one I've heard before. It's really interesting.
Well, yeah, that's the great thing about Ava. Everybody has their own interpretation and their own take, and it means something to them. And
Kind of a neat common ground when you can have something that, can have so many meanings, and quite frankly, most of them make sense.
right, yeah. There's a lot of different interpretations, and they're all true. Oh,
There she is.
charmed, huh?
Charmed, huh?
So are you. I love that line.
That is a great line.
It's a good tag. And then it's the naked floating Ray
Yes, naked floating upside down Ray.
with the fry me to the moon. Oh, well, that was super fun.
I had a great time. It was
Me
fun going
too.
back with you, girl.
It was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I always enjoy watching this episode. It's got a lot of energy.
Absolutely. And I hope they enjoy it as well.
I hope so. And thanks for watching. And oh gosh, that was my water bottle falling down.
See, real life does happen in the booth. What are we going to say?
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching, really, and your support. And
oh, yeah.
keep
all
your
the support
comments
over
coming
the years.
and
Yes,
your
please.
interpretations, because they're really, really exciting. And please keep watching, because who knows? We'll probably, like you said, be doing this for the rest of our lives, and we hope
Who
so.
knows? Who knows? Thanks.
Signing off. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
I love you.
This is Tiffany Grant. I, of course, play Asuka Langley Soryu, and I will be resisting the strong temptation to karaoke the opening song. Thank you.
And I'm Brian Gronveld, and I played the part of Makoto Hyuga in Neon Genesis Evangelion.
And he really hates that director guy, Matt Greenfield.
Oh, I can't stand him. No, just terrible. Of course, actually, I'm the same person, but we won't go. It's a split personality thing.
Yeah, try living with both of them. So, have we mentioned the three-child, three-tech
I can't remember if we did
thing
that or
on
not.
a previous commentary? Oh,
Honestly,
what the heck? What if they haven't listened to that one? Okay, so one of the unique things that happened after the recording of Evangelion, or during, after, whatever, the three children ended up marrying the three nerve techs. Who got married first? Was it
Spike and Kendra.
Spike and Kendra? So Spike Spencer, Shinji Ikari, married Kendra Benham, Maya Ibuki.
And then Amanda Wynn became Amanda Wynn Lee when she married Jason Lee, now Jackson Lee.
That's another story.
SAG regulations.
Yeah.
And then
And
of
that
course,
was, let's see, Shigeru Aoba, and of course, Rei Ayanami,
Right.
known as Wonder Girl.
right.
And then we got married.
Yeah. Much later.
Much
I
later.
resisted as long as I could.
Yeah. And then actually, Spike Spencer once said that it wasn't a coincidence; it was actually in our contract.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, there's Aoba right now.
Yeah, this was an interesting episode because we actually got to see what these people did when they weren't sitting in the control room reading things. And apparently, Maya goes through a lot of sheets.
Yeah, we don't know why that is. But
It's either that or they're all. It looks like sheets to me. Maybe they're identical uniforms because she has a lot of those.
yeah, all of their outfits are the same. I mean, you don't really see Maya having a large variety in her wardrobe.
Mm-hmm. It just makes
there's
one wonder.
Fuyutsuki.
Yes. Oh, there was a great outtake that Gil Lundy did while he was doing this episode. He was sitting there reading it, and he was reading actually personals out of the back of the Houston Press.
I wish we still had that.
Yeah. There were things about Fuyutsuki's sexual orientation we really didn't need to know.
Well, isn't it interesting that the only people in this train car are all people that happen to work for Nerve? There's no other people.
Yes, of course. Well, I mean,
And
it's going to Nerve, but the fact that they're all the people we happen to know, yes, it's very convenient.
Yeah, I mean, like the janitors or, the people who wash the Avas or whatever, they're not going on this train at the same
People
time.
who wash the Avas.
I don't know.
It's an interesting
I want
concept.
someone to keep my Ava Unit 2 clean. Darn it.
I think you go through the drive-through, just kind of crawl through on that thing.
They're really big.
Yeah. It's going to be extra for the hot wax. Of course, you have to be careful when asking for that in Japan because you'll get something entirely different.
Oh, I probably don't want to know what that is. Actually, I really have fond memories of this episode. This was a lot of fun, and it has some of my very favorite lines in it, which I will alert you to when they happen.
Yeah, this was a rough episode for me because Hyuga had a lot of dialogue in this one that wasn't just, hailing frequencies open, sir, and that sort of thing.
I think that was Uhura. I think you're getting yourself confused with Michelle Nichols.
It's the same character. It's just one's Japanese and wears glasses and one isn't. But, I mean, for most of the episodes, Hyuga and Aoba basically serve that. I mean, Maya Ibuki does have a little bit more background to her. She does a little bit more. But Hyuga and Aoba, until the very end of the show, really exist basically to tell you what's going on off camera.
Oh, it's Kashi. He's a real man.
Yeah. Okay. I have to live with this, folks, just so you're wondering. She's not putting this
Kashi's
on.
the best.
She's not putting this on for the commentary. She's like this 24 hours a day.
That's true. And I do
The only
love
thing that's
Kashi.
worse is when she's not on the Asuka riff. It's the Hello Kitty riff.
Oh, yes. Well, we could do a commentary about Hello Kitty, but the Ava fans might not appreciate that.
I always felt that combining the two
Loser!
would work.
Loser! Oh, you big wimp. Just suck it up.
And she is referring to the character, not Spike Spencer there.
Oh. Yeah, Spike's okay. But Shinji's a big wimp.
Yeah,
He gets on my nerves.
But this is actually a pretty good episode for him. I think this is a nice episode because the characters actually do interact with each other. It's not just the, I don't like you, you don't like me kind of thing. The whole wandering around in the subterranean chambers, it's like, okay, Asuka's trying to be the boss, and Rey always has the right idea, but they never listen to it.
No, they wouldn't want to.
And meanwhile, these two get to take off all their clothes.
Yeah, now here's something fun. It's like that nightmare of who would you least like to be stuck in an elevator with. So it's kind of like a nightmare for Misato, but...
Yeah, see, all those other guys who are in the background there behind Ritsuko, they never say anything. They're always just there. And about the only time you ever hear them say in this episode,
They're made of plastic. They're not real.
Well, they're actually shown later on hauling a bunch of things around, but manually, making grunting sounds.
They're probably going off to wash my Ava.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got a lot of little tiny cloths. They just buff that
Little
sucker.
squeegees.
That in
I
itself
hear
is
Kim
interesting.
Severe. I hear Kim Severe making an announcement.
Yep.
Who
Kim,
would later portray Yui Ikari.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about going through this. You could kind of see who was new to the company and was slowly working their ways up because they would be the background voice and all of a sudden they would show up as a character. And then we'd have to have someone else doing the background voices. I've always loved the fact that they have these giant signs on the street explaining what everything is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just...
Oh, one of my favorite lines is coming up. Can you guess what it is? Do you know? Do you know? Of course, Asuka needs to shove her out of the way because she'll figure it out. Well, here you go, Shinji. This looks like your department.
See, here we hear the guys. I heard Doug Smith in the background there.
Oh.
You see, Ibuki's got the right idea. She just stays close to Ritsuko, and she doesn't have to do any real work. Yeah, okay. Do you want to comment on that?
No, just that, I don't know, maybe Maya is staying close to Ritsuko for other reasons. Huh?
She's her assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet
know
she would like
millions
to
of
give her some
fanboy-
assistance.
Indeed. I know a lot of fanboys who like to believe otherwise. I do love this whole business with these two acting so cool and calm. And we actually see later they've got their feet in buckets, which is just an amazing thing. And then these guys...
Well, there's no air conditioning, so they're very, very hot.
I love the guys who are playing the generals in this show because they really didn't have a whole lot to do. And this episode here was totally different. They usually are always angry and fuming, and this particular one is like, what's going on? I don't know. It's a Big Daddy Longlegs.
Yeah, it's a Daddy Longlegs Angel. Oh, that smoking is bad for you. People watching the show, you should not smoke. Smoking is bad.
On the other hand, Ritsuko's in really good shape. She's just hauling up these things.
Oh, yeah. And there's her faithful assistant, Maya, right behind her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well.
Yes. We're just going to try them all. Why not?
Maybe Ayanami will come up with a novel idea like consulting her instruction manual.
No fair. You watched this thing in advance, didn't you?
But, the true leaders do not need to consult things like manuals.
Yeah. There's been this long-running dichotomy for those wondering out there. Some people have trouble separating themselves from the characters. Initially, there was a great denial that they may have been cast because they were extremely similar to certain characters. And now
It took me many years to come to terms with that, so that I may be somewhat like Asuka.
somewhat.
Slightly.
When we started casting the show, everyone kept asking, Tiffany's going to be Asuka, right? It's going to be Tiffany, right? And I was like, no, I want to get someone who can act.
People ask me a lot about, you had to do that German dialogue, and was that hard to learn? And no, I think this looks like your department. Yay! Anyway, no, I already spoke German, so that was just very handy that she happened to be German and I could speak German, so that was handy. And, who's doing these general guys?
Scott Kilgore was the one in the center. I'm trying to remember who the other ones were.
Yeah,
I think one of them's Lou Temple.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Lou. I'm trying to remember who the third one was.
I don't know.
I have to go back and look.
Didn't recognize it right off, but that's okay.
It's been, 7-8 years since we recorded this episode?
Something like that.
Now, see, all of his laundry is red.
And in plastic bags.
Mm-hmm. That's because he didn't go to laundromat. He just had it done dry cleaning. I think it's actually wrapped in tissue paper, but I'm not really sure.
I don't know. It's shiny. I think maybe he's obsessive compulsive.
I mean, he's all by himself. He's not talking. He's not giving orders. It's like, I had to kind of figure out who this character was all of a sudden, because up until that point, I was like, yes, sir. No, sir. Look out.
Well, he was talking to his imaginary shirt friends.
Yes, his shirt friends, yes.
Fairies that
It's a very important
shirts.
part of the Ava mythology that people at home don't know about.
Yeah.
But it was really rough because,
mystery friends.
I had basically put myself in the part of Hugo because when we first started recording, we would have actors not show up, and we needed to keep the system running and the studio running, so I would just do those lines. And as the show kept going on, he kept getting more and more lines. It's like, what did I do to myself? I stopped doing that after that. Hugo was the one.
Sneak up on you and be a bigger character than you thought.
We actually had quite a lot of dialogue in the later episodes, and I had to go back and do it again for the director's cuts.
Yes. And wasn't that fun also?
Oh, that was loads of fun. Yep.
And that would be Kim Sear.
And I think it's Doug as the crazy driver.
That would make sense.
It's the same people over and over in the background every episode.
I love the creepy music. That music is very appropriately creepy, and you always knew that there was something ominous looming whenever they started playing that.
Yeah, especially when the lighting goes like this, and they start lighting everyone from below, something big's going to happen. Mm-hmm.
They have the ominous candles. Ooh. No matter how hot it gets, though, Ritsuko's not going to take off her lab coat.
Oh, of course not. And she's wearing a wetsuit. I mean, you would really think that would be like the first problem, would be the wetsuit. Those things are warm.
Oh, a wetsuit?
Huh? A wetsuit.
Why is she wearing a wetsuit?
She's always wearing a wetsuit.
She is?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's because she has to swim in the tank with the Ava.
Okay.
So her normal outfit is a wetsuit. Yeah. Periodically you see her.
Okay. Well, I just always looked at the lab coat.
Mm-hmm. That's why she wears the lab coat, because it's over a wetsuit. I mean, she does have some other outfits, but usually she's wearing the wetsuit.
Oh, I hear Hugo telling us stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, we're over here. Hello.
Yeah, like I'm going to hear you. I'm driving in a car with a PA system, about a mile away. And, we'll yell. He'll hear us. Ooh, and you're in total darkness.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
So, of course, you guys... Whoa, wait a second. We saw Die Hard. We'll know what to do.
We're climbing through the things and I always thought this was a really interesting scene where Shinji, in the midst of this, suddenly comes up with the idea to ask, why on earth are we fighting these angels?
I think that's kind of how it happened in reality. It was like basically someone, we haven't bothered explaining this yet, and we're almost halfway through the show. Maybe we should toss this line in somewhere. And of course nobody actually knows the answer, so...
The answer is, what are you, stupid?
Which actually may be the answer in the end.
Yeah. I think it should be the answer now, of course. Oscar.
What I do find interesting about it is that, why is Ray wearing much more comfortable shoes?
I don't know. Yeah, here you go. Here's your visual confirmation. My other favorite line in this episode. She's freaking out, and then... composure. Now that I visually confirmed the presence of the angel, I love that. And so, where did you just steal that car, or how did you?
Oh, yeah, it was the advertising car in the beginning of the episode, and I hijacked it. Yeah, Kim Severe's character and the driver are both still in there. It's like, okay, that's a good way to communicate.
I think that Hugo probably just always wanted to do that. Flash his badge and like, I'm commandeering this vehicle. Ho, ho, ho.
What I find interesting is the body language. It's always, your character is always staying there stoically, and Ray is always like, oh. But no, what I was saying is, note that she is, you're wearing school outfits, but she's not wearing regulation shoes. She's got the nice comfy shoes. She knew something was going to happen. That's why she's wearing the comfy shoes.
Oh, really?
No, I don't think so. I'm just saying, I think it's interesting that you're wearing a little
I just
black.
think that she has no fashion sense. That would be.
But it's a school uniform. You have to wear a certain outfit for the school uniform. So why is she wearing the school
uniform? So what are they going to do? I mean, kill her? Because there's like a million more of them.
Well, yeah. See, here's those background guys actually saying something for a change.
Yeah, those are not actually lines. Oh, who was that?
Now, see, if you look, you see it's her outfit. That's a wetsuit. You've really never caught on to that after all this time that she wears a wetsuit.
I swear, okay, all the fans are going to hate me now. I knew it was something blue.
Yep, it's a wetsuit.
Well, holy cow. That totally makes sense. Wow, I could just hear that in my left headphone.
What,
the
cool. Clang, clang, clang? Yeah.
That was
actually,
cool.
what we're listening to right now is not the actual mix. This is kind of rough elements.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll be in 5-point glorious 1 by the time people actually hear it at home. But
nifty.
There are so many elements that had to be isolated and re-separated for the soundtrack. There's actually going to be another commentary track on this disc talking about that. These things were all recorded on a system that by today's standards is absolutely ancient and avid audio vision. And the stuff the stuff was archived onto digital tape, but the level of the recording quality has been enhanced so much by the new mix. Poor Wade Shimwell has spent hours and hours locked up in a box.
Periodically, he comes and yells at me and tells me that I'm annoying him. No, I haven't done anything. And then he says something about Oscar being annoying, and I find that to be a very unfair critique.
But it's true.
Not.
Does the entry plug ever look like something to you?
I'm not going to comment on that.
I've always kind of wondered. Yeah.
Well, let's see. It's supposed to be like the womb. Sort of.
I always thought it looked like a tampon, but that's just me. Again, it's the whole analogy thing going on there.
Yeah. But
the whole show has a big thing with things going into other things. There's a lot of these engines that just slam into each other in order to activate. It's like, it doesn't really seem to make much sense to build something that has to have, giant hydraulic lifts move it just so it can make contact. But, okay, it looks cool.
Or the fact that they needed to have, like a plug.
I've always
Not the entry plug, but the electricity, the socket.
I've always felt the show was really inspired by the old Jerry Anderson shows, which have been a big influence on anime, where, of course, the shows were done with puppets, and puppets don't walk very convincingly, so they had come up with all these ideas of how to get the puppets into the various vehicles. They always had little chairs, special chairs, and little vehicles they rode to get in and whatever, and I think that carried through into the giant robot genre. It's like, oh, well, they can't just walk into it. No, they've got to get into this plug that is then mechanically inserted. Never mind that it's ridiculously complex. It looks cool, so.
I was going to say about the previous scene that it was very interesting how you had seen the 3 children climbing on their bellies through the corridor, and then right afterwards, of course, you see the 3 Avas doing the same thing. And now we have a big owie. Clunk, clunk, clunk. Oops, dropped my gun.
Obviously, very good friction grip there on Ava 1. That's, what did you say? Probably about 300-400 tons?
A lot.
Because, Ava 2 is fat. But,
no. Ava 2 is just the best. Then we need to get that straight.
I mean fat in the, the street term of fat.
pH? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way.
It's an interesting acid, too. Like, when you first hit them, it's like burning really big, and then it's like, oh, we can handle a little bit of it.
Yeah. So we're going to beat it, of course.
I like how the Avas are looking over their shoulders and the close-ups. Those are real nice.
It's funny how the Avas will mimic what the pilot is doing.
They're just in a little huddle here. That's great.
1, 2, 3, hike!
Just Ava 4, just always, Ava 4, Ava 2 always looks like, it's just kind of like confused to me, because it's got the 4 eyes and they're never actually looking in the same direction.
Well, that's prudent that they're not looking in the same direction. It's more of a defensive position, I think.
Yeah, is that what that is?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
And of course, Asuka is coming up with the whole plan here to save everyone's butt.
Yeah, and it almost makes sense, and fortunately the others are competent enough to carry it off, even if it's nuts.
One thing I always like about Asuka is her confidence. You know, it's like once she sets her mind to it, she just always knows that she can do it, no matter what it is. Okay, this big daddy long legs thing is going to spew acid on me, but I can handle that. This is the plan. And they're doing
toss the gun up.
Yeah.
Okay, bangity bang bang bang.
Bang, bang, bang. Awesome.
Now, it'd be really funny if this thing turned out to have a gelatinous body, just falls in the tube, fits it exactly, but then the series would be over, so, oh well.
Yeah, it would be too soon for it to be over. Poor Kaji.
It's especially bad when she's talking about having to go to the bathroom. He's like,
and of course, the doors will open and find them in a compromising position.
This is super high tech, and the elevators actually, as they go forward, the gear actually turns in. What is going on with that? It's like LED readouts aren't good enough. No, apparently, I mean everything shuts down without the power. Wow, isn't it great? We're having this long conversation over a pan over artwork, so we have no lips.
No lip flaps. That's the best ever.
So I say, oh,
there we are. You see us way down there. That's right. And now the electricity's coming back on.
Personally, I would think it'd be real
happy.
convenient, comfortable lying out in the plug suits. I never thought the plug suits looked very comfortable. But
I don't know. My plug suit's pretty comfortable, but it's made out of cotton lycra.
yeah, I mean, the plug suits.
Hers is probably not.
No, it's. I think it's some kind of vinyl or something. It's got to be waterproof. Oh, look,
Yeah.
the episode's over.
Oh, no. No, now we have to listen to Megumi sing Fry Me to the Moon, or whoever's singing it this episode. Oh. How many versions? That would be a good trivia question. One that I do not know the answer to.
I'm not really sure. I know just about everybody in the cast got to sing it. I think
Miyamoo did. Miyamoo sang it. I think it was the Dance Like You Want to Win episode that she sang it at the end.
Yeah.
She had a really cute little I love you at the end. Yay, Miyamoo.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I'd use the word cute, but okay. After hearing it about 75 times, it kind of gives you a little tick. But
I was driving along the other day and I heard Frank Sinatra's version on the radio, and I can't hear.
did he do this?
I can't hear any version of this song without thinking of Ava. I mean, it's just impossible for
I
me
didn't know
anymore.
he did a cover of it. That's surprising.
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't it just? Well, thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Matt Greenfield, and once upon a time, many moons ago, I directed the English ADR for Neon Genesis Evangelion.
And I'm Wade Shimwell, and I am the mixing engineer for the restoration process.
There's a lot of stuff we had to do on this show. Now, we got from the Japanese, from Gainax and the various audio engineers over there, new stems for all the music and sound effects that are separated out so we could do a true 5.1 mix. But just because we have that doesn't simplify things, because everything moved around somewhat spatially, right?
Yes, and we were dealing with 8-year-old audio.
8-year-old audio that was backed up onto digital tape at this was at 44, right?
That's correct. It was recorded at 44.1, but we did up-res everything for consistency.
For those at home, that means that this was recorded at the same sampling rate that CDs use, which is what we use for VHS. But now that we've gone to DVD, everything's at 48.
Correct. And it was recorded digitally, which is a plus. But at the same time, there is a great deal of effort that goes into the restoration process.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we're fighting is, in the old days, we had a lot of booth presence on the recording, just because we couldn't hear it at the time because the quality of our monitoring equipment has improved tremendously. But the actors sit in a little booth listening to the dialogue over headphones, and quite often in the old days, if you listened really close, once we went back and started listening to it, you could sort of hear ghosting coming in over their headphones.
Yeah, there's some pretty significant headphone bleed. And the entire signal chain is changed immensely. I mean, from the microphone to the preamp to the converter to the actual recording equipment that we're using. So,
and what this does now is it means that if they've moved the positioning of scenes and sound effects around, so whereas it used to be unnoticeable because it was masked by the actual original sound, now you get this stuff that's ever so slightly out of phase with the background, and you've had to go in and manually clean all that stuff up.
Well, correct, and plus a lot of the imperfections in the original were masked by the fact that it was a stereo mix, and now the majority of dialogue is present in the center channel without anything to mask it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Of course, on the other hand, the advantages that we've had with the remix is our ability to place the voices into environments has improved tremendously. I think that's what people really be noticing about the remix, is that there's so many places where everything just blends so naturally, especially with Ava, where you've got a lot of people talking in the background over speakers and then people talking in front of it. In a stereo mix, that can get very confusing to understand, whereas when you get the sonic separation of something being on just the left channel or on the rear channels, it helps your brain say, okay, that's this line and these are these lines.
Right. I mean, that's essentially the job of a mixing engineer, I mean, in this particular environment. Because, I mean, there really are no environmental factors.
Everybody's in a booth that has absolutely the bottom minimum amount of room reverb. There's a tiny, tiny bit, because if you take out too much, everybody sounds like you've got your fingers in your ears.
Right, and it's the job to recreate these ambiences and make them convincing because there is no location.
Mm-hmm. Plus, of course, on Ava, we've got a lot of electronic processing, people speaking over PAs, as heard through windows, people cutting back and forth in the middle of conversations, from a radio voice to a live person there in front of you, as much live as a cartoon character, of course, can be, and all these really tricky sonic situations, because when they were originally doing it, they weren't really paying much attention to where the sound was coming from.
Right. That was actually one of my main choices as sound designer, was to change the way the voices were perceived from inside the Ava. Because the environment needed to be completely and totally removed from any, reference of reality, in my opinion. So it deserved a special treatment, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was stuff we did originally, the interiors of the Avas. We had come up with a womb-like kind of ambience, and there's basic reflective sounds off walls in large areas and that sort of thing, backscatter and so on. But what's been done now really changes everything, and whereas I think the original Japanese track got away with a lot of what it did because it was so basic. It was just like a radio show going on over the visuals. On the English version, it was more obvious, I think, to a lot of people that the environments weren't necessarily dead on. It wasn't something you knew immediately, but there was a nagging suspicion in the back of your head that this doesn't quite seem to be right for the environment.
The original mix of the Japanese and the English both, I mean, they served their purpose very well at the time, but they were dated compared to audio standards of today, and that's when we received the new Japanese materials. It was just I mean, it was night and day, the same way the video was.
Yeah, I mean, they literally went completely back and redid huge chunks of the audio work from scratch. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to remix it. No, they took all the original sound effects they had. A lot of them were junked and new effects were put in. The music was re-encoded. I believe some of it was actually re-recorded.
There's different songs, there's different effects, definitely between the two versions.
But it's the music itself is actually a different mix. As you know, there are certain places where in the 5.1 individual instruments are thrown to the rear channels, like in the opening credits. So what's the bongos are coming in on the rear channel?
Yes, well, the rear left channel.
Yeah,
prominently, a bit too prominently for my taste, but you know, it is there.
It's everyone's taste. Yeah, I think that's more like, hey, look, it's in 5.1 now. You're going to really notice it, kind of sort of thing.
Right. It was apparent, but I mean the overall effect. I think. I mean the show obviously has a large enough fan base and a demand to redo these materials. I mean, to actually, it's worthy of that type of treatment, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean the show has continued to involve fans in all the years. It's just amazing that something that we did. This was actually only the second long form, that is to say, a TV show of 26 episodes that we did. We started on Blue Seed shortly before this, and I think we'd done about 4 or 5 episodes of Blue Seed before we started on the first Ava. So we were still kind of learning the process, and there were a lot of things that we did then that I would definitely do differently now. One of the things that listening to it in retrospect is that we were recording initially 2 episodes at a time, and the background characters would quite often, end up repeating every 3rd or 4th episode, because originally they released 2 episodes to a tape, and we weren't really thinking, well, 2 episodes down, it's the same guy in the back. Well, we were recording that 3 months after we recorded the previous 2 episodes, and now you go back and listen like, oh, wait a second, you notice the same guy speaking a little bit more, and you've done some stuff to fix that. We've got actually a few cases and replaced people.
That's been actually one of the biggest challenges, was trying to make it not seem redundant, because it is playing 5 episodes at a time. So you're watching them back to back, and there's subtle little tricks like pitch shifting and certain ways of pulling lines from other places that are still maintain the original intent without being redundant. So.
Yeah, we've actually also done there are a few places where our original translations were not exactly as spot on with the final intent. That is, they made sense at the time, but looking back on it afterwards, it was like, wow, I really wish that line had been different. And we've actually had Allison Keith in to record some of the Misato lines over again. Of course, she's also been in to re-record the Coming Attractions, because we have much shorter versions of the Coming Attractions in these versions than what was on the original.
Right, it was 30 seconds, but in the original it was 60.
With entirely different background music, because when we did them originally, we didn't have background music for the previews, so we used what I call the action music, which is very reminiscent of John Barry's 007 theme, the dun, 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 dun thing. And of course everything was done around that, and then of course the actual Japanese music is da, 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 da. It's all happy and people are dying and that sort of thing, and it's kind of, okay. So we really needed to re-record it so it made sense in context.
There's actually several augmentations that are made. There's some significant differences even between the Japanese and English mixes in the vocal effects themselves. I mean, at the risk of sounding stereotypical, this seems to be relatively consistent between Eastern and Western films. I mean, Americans in particular usually prefer things to be slightly larger of scale. These are due to different cultural differences, but the intent always is to maintain the original integrity of the Japanese without changing it too much, but still making it original and unique.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that's just a basic problem when you're doing an English language version is the fact that Japanese grammar and English grammar are entirely different, and the placement of the words is quite often entirely different as far as what's important and what is important. And because you have to stress things differently.
And the cadence of the language.
The cadence, which is actually one of the things you've really been fighting here, is because what you're literally doing, for the people who don't understand, is we have these tapes, and of course the tapes don't match the running times anymore of the new revised versions because there's slight differences in the lengths of each and every scene. So basically what Wade's been doing is sitting there, rolling these tapes out, cutting each line out individually, and repasting it back into the proper context. While he's doing that, he's also taking advantage of the fact that we have a lot better ability. That was really terrible grammar. A lot better ability now to manipulate the actual dialogue to fit the lips a little better. It's not a horrible squeeze or, something really artificial sounding, but the lip flaps actually don't match anymore.
Well, our preamps, our microphones, preamps, the entire signal chain has gotten so much better that there's a certain level of expectation from a product that we produce.
Yeah, I mean, especially after, you were the mix guy for Rosaphon, which was, a show that has a lot of similarities to Evangelion. It's newer, and the sound design on that show is flawless.
It's incredible.
And because we went in knowing what we were working with, we were able to get some very, very seamless stuff and do some wonderful bits where characters are talking very low and it's still very legible. When we were recording Eva, quite often the music in the background would be so bad because Japanese cuts so much better than English does. It's a much harsher edged language, for lack of a better way of saying it. We would actually have to have the characters just speaking much louder just to cut over it.
Right, and the placement sometimes doesn't necessarily fit in with what's going on because the Japanese language, as you said, it pierces through music and effects. And honestly, there's some noisy takes on the original English version. So, yes, I did spend a lot of time trying to reduce that amount of noise so it's not so perceivable.
Yeah, I was really surprised once I actually sat down and started listening to what you had done with it. It's like, wow, it sounds so much better, not just in terms of the acoustics, but it actually improved the feeling of the performance because they finally all seemed to actually be in the same room 100%. I think the actors were always really good about giving the feeling that they're talking to each other, but because they would all be different distances from the microphone as they moved around in the booths, and some of them were actually recorded in different booths at different times, and the system that we were recording on would actually, the mic preamps would be set slightly differently day to day. We couldn't overcome that technically back then with the old Audiovision equipment we were using. And now with the new state of the art, it's like, wow.
Well, I mean, that brings up an interesting point as well. The time compression and expansion algorithms that were available at the time made it difficult to make accurate lip sync viable. So it's not worth sacrificing the overall performance just for lip sync, but now.
Right. Well, the biggest thing that we'd learned back then is you could do a slight bit of compression, maybe like 97%, if the diction was originally very clean. If someone was mumbling or getting a little too close to the mic so you're picking up a lot of the mouth sound and so on, the compression algorithms in the old systems would actually accent that.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the great things about having access to nice gear.
It's just, it's so different. And you came in long after we had actually done Ava. Your first show was actually Gasaraki.
Yeah, it was Gasaraki.
Which was another show that has a lot of similarities to Ava. And at that point, I'm trying to remember, was it just before Gasaraki or was it right after? I think it was just before Gasaraki that we had actually moved away from the Audiovision and into...
It was actually right after.
Right after.
Right after. It was right. And, I mean... And we moved. Everything has changed, and in that change, I think that hopefully the quality of the product altogether has just gotten, obviously much better.
Yeah, I mean, from a technical standpoint, things have definitely improved tremendously, and we're really benefiting from that on Ava Platinum. It's really strange sitting here and listening to this something that we did 9 years ago. And it sounds like something we're recording now. And I know the amount of work you're putting in, having to clean up the dialogue, all the lip farts, as we call them, and stuff that we used to just leave in there because it really wasn't possible to clean it out. Now you can go in and literally expand the audio out so that the waveforms are all the size of your head and go in and clip just a tiny section of that waveform where there's that little digital glitch or whatever.
Right. Well, it's mainly just giving this particular project the amount of respect because this is a huge cultural phenomenon. I wasn't actually familiar with it before I started mixing on this project, so I've become more familiar with it, and I've come to learn it as I've mixed it, and I've purposely not watched the entire series so it can develop with me. And it really is a cultural phenomenon. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's, at the same time, you understand why it works because there's so much stuff that is dropped that leaves you wondering every episode, all these questions asked, and every time they answer a question, it's answered with more questions.
Well, I remember that was one of my first questions for you. It was like, what are the angels? What is all this? What is all this? And it's like, that's the point. There's tons of religious symbolism in it, and that's why I think it's become what it was. And honestly, this is...
I really think that the reason Ava's been so successful is they didn't answer the questions.
Right.
So people have to keep coming back and coming up with their own. And when they did answer questions, they did it in a way that people didn't care for the answers. And they say, no, that can't be the real answer. I want this. I actually really, really like the way the series ends, not wanting to give away spoilers here. And I think that going on to do the movies was a mistake because I think that they went in a direction that was certainly not in the same spirit as the TV series.
Well, see, that's one of... I mixed the director's cut before this, and so I know the end, and I was like, what the hell is going on?
Right. Mm-hmm. So you've seen the end.
But it's, honestly, this episode, the reason I picked this one is because this angel to me was like the most dangerous one. Mm-hmm. It was,
it's subtle. It's ever present. I also really like this episode because this was a great episode for the actors because we learned a little bit about them. It was also, I think, for Sue Ulu, who played Ritsuko. It was a great episode for her because up until this point, Ritsuko had basically been the woman with the clipboard, kind of brusque, and we actually get a little bit more into it. And people who have not met Sue have no idea how big a stretch this character is for her. Everyone thinks, oh, well, that's Sue, because that's the first part. And it's like, no, Sue is Turkish, actually. And the voice she uses for Ritsuko is completely unlike the voice she grew up speaking. Her natural speaking voice, she's spoken that way for me a few times, much higher. She had to go through speech therapy to lower her voice so she wouldn't annoy people in this country with a much higher voice register. And to try and drop into the head of this Japanese woman for a Turkish woman, I thought was an interesting challenge. But she rose to it wonderfully.
Well, it is odd because most of the voice actors that participated in this particular project are no longer around.
A lot of them are, actually. It's about 50-50.
50-50? Okay.
Yeah, I mean
Tiffany,
Spike, Allison.
Yeah.
Of course, Allison left and came back.
But it is odd mixing and hearing voices and, like, who is that?
Who are these people? And actually, you learn the background characters, and he was just in the other day recording on Parasite Dolls. A lot of these people still come through on occasion. Others have gone on to their own careers outside. Obviously, Amanda Wynn and Jason Lee, now Jackson Lee, are doing work in L.A.
Right.
We actually managed to track down Gil Lundy for the director's cut, and I just got word today that long after we did the director's cut, we just found Kyle Sturdivant again, who was the original Kaworu, which is a part for the director's cut we had to replace with Greg Ayers.
You actually played a part in here, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm actually Hugo, the guy with the glasses. It was actually the last time I played a continuing character.
Right.
I would do bit parts periodically, but the main reason I did that is when we started recording this show, we had not actually built our own studio yet. And this was like the third thing we actually recorded in the first studio we built. And prior to this, we were using an outside studio we had to rent, and we had a big problem with actors not showing up. So when actors didn't show up,
that's different from now. How
you were well. The thing is, back then, because it wasn't our studio, we were already paying for that engineer and for those machines and everything. So every hour we didn't have an actor in the studio was a couple of $100 going down the drain.
Right.
So I had just gotten in the habit of saying, okay, if we have a no-show or a late actor, I'm going to step in the booth and start doing something. So I had gotten in the habit on the early 1- and 2-shot shows things like Gunsmith Cats and so on, of doing background voices. And on Blue Seed, I gave myself this small continuing character named Sugashita, and I did the same thing on Ava, never realizing that here it would be 9 years later, and I'm still having to go back and revoice this character.
Well, that's the very first thing I thought. Because, I mean, obviously I didn't know that you were in the show, and I was like, is that Matt? Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and under a pseudonym.
The night before she died.
I like how they have nerve on all their stuff. It's like on their coffee cups.
Well, of course, it's because they have a lot of nerve. But you can't have too much nerve.
They have nerve parking stickers, nerve coffee cups, nerve paraphernalia.
Yeah, well, it's built-in instant merchandising, and if you know Gynax, you know that they are fairly infamous in Japan for marketing things to an extent no one else has ever touched. It's really quite amazing.
They definitely took some very, very bold chances with this show, but obviously it worked.
How totally like my mother.
And here we go with yet another rendition of the in theme. Every episode has a different version of the in theme.
Some are better than others.
I think everybody in the cast went through it. Some are better than others. Yeah.
But, to be completely honest.
It's the reverse. You know, people are always saying, well, geez, how come the American actors, can't say the Japanese names exactly like the Japanese? Well, it's because it's a different phoneme set. And it goes the other way. When you're sitting there trying to sing a song in a language that's not naturally your language, it's one thing to go from French or Spanish to English. Right. There's only a few phonemes that aren't, the rolled R's and so on, the guttural H's and so on.
From a Latin base to an Eastern base, it's
right. It's a completely different set, and there's simply sounds that don't exist. I mean, B, as a sound doesn't, and V are the same sound in Japanese. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And I played Asuka, Asuka Langley Soryu. Hey, is that you over there, Hyuga?
No, this is the voice of your conscience. Now, who are we kidding? You don't have a conscience.
No.
It's why you were absolutely perfect for the role. Okay, yes, this is the...
It's the opening sequence with the floating naked rays. Woo!
Yeah, there's a lot of those going around.
Just one of the many reasons why this was never broadcast on regular U.S. television.
Oh, I don't think it's any worse than, say, a James Bond opening. But I think there were a lot of other reasons it wasn't broadcast on regular television. It just really would not sell a whole lot of... what is it? Pudding pops or...
If you edited out all the objectionable content, you could show the whole series as like 1/2-hour show.
Sadly true by the standards.
Oh, there's blood! There's blood!
Yeah,
oh, no!
Can we cut out those religious references?
Yeah, I think we should. Hey, yay! It's Asuka. Woo! Hey, this is like the best opening theme song ever, Cruel Angel's Thesis.
Yes, I know you can sing it in Japanese.
Yes, I can. It is one of the few songs I know all the way through in Japanese. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
But the episode we're doing is kind of a pivotal one for Asuka.
Mm-hmm.
It's when basically we start really seeing exactly how attracted to Kaji she is.
Kaji's dreamy.
So do you remember anything at all about recording these episodes? It's been so long.
I probably will remember something when it gets to a part that I'm in. I don't remember too much about Tristan's recording session because I wasn't there.
Which is true because people don't think about it, but everyone back then was recording very separately. You would come in, record 1 or 2 episodes, and you might occasionally run into someone who was recording on the show coming in after you. But
Right. We didn't really see the other actors very much. I think one interesting thing that I've pointed out many times to people is I did not know Spike Spencer at all when we first started doing this show. I've gotten to know him somewhat since then, but I really didn't know him. I had no idea what he even looked like. And towards the end of the recording of this series, I remember, starting to run into him a couple times and see him and kind of say, hello, hi, how you doing? And I actually, Aaron Crone as the very dreamy Kaji. I didn't really know Aaron either. I had met him like one time for 2 minutes, so I was oohing and ahhing over someone I didn't even know.
And of course, that's actually Laura Chapman.
I was just going to say, here, Laura.
Yeah, this is very early for her. She had done Battle Angel at this point, and of course, she eventually turns to have actually, she's got a much larger part in Ava.
Yeah, because she's Dr. Akagi. She's Ritsuko's mom,
Right.
so creator of the Magi.
And I think what's interesting about this scene is that, A, the cats are eating cheese doodles, which I don't understand, but
I think cats would eat cheese doodles.
they might. But no, is that we see Kaji really trying to mine for these details, and in retrospect, we realize he's being funneled down a path.
That ought to do it.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
Her trying to manipulate Kaji and coming to
that
her
was the thing, is we
rescue.
really start to seeing the whole manipulations, which, of course, in the director's cut, they come out a little bit more. But at this point, it's really starting to realize that it's more than just a schoolgirl crush. I mean, Asuka's got some serious fixations going on here.
She does. And she's very concerned that he's not been available to see her lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she really hasn't considered Misato a rival up until this point. Of course, by the end of this episode, she realizes Misato is more than just a rival.
Mm-hmm. I think that she really, truly was not aware of their relationship. And, well, when she was with Kaji in Germany. And she'd also known Misato from Germany separately, but didn't really know their past history
they
together.
weren't there together at the same time, so it was kind of first there's one and then there's the other. So in her mind, they're separate things, and the whole relationship, even though it's been bantered around in front of her before, it's kind of like, oh, they're just joking. It's nothing there. And,
or it's all in the past, and that's ancient history, and now it's my turn. Sad delusions, but Asuka really was quite fond of him. And speaking of being fond of, I just love the character of Misato. I think she's great.
Well, this is a phenomenal episode for Allison. I think really it's probably the best episode for her as an actor at the end, where she kind of just lets it all come down. It was a very difficult scene. We'll talk about that more when we get there. But I think that... Again, this is really the point where a lot of the secrets of the characters are starting to come out.
One of the famous elevator sequences. They love to do these elevator sequences.
At least they're talking in this one. It's not
blah, blah,
blah.
It's just whining. Big whiner. Oh, yeah, my father doesn't love me. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, shut your mouth.
Yeah, it's interesting how you have never liked Shinji as a character. Just from day one, you've always just...
No, I don't like it very much. Especially after the movies, but that's a different story. No, not real fond of...
Okay, now that's an odd thing to tell someone. He says, basically, well, when you were wringing out the cloth, it reminded me of a mother. And it's just kind of like, okay... No. Shinji, he does have some issues going on here.
Doesn't have really a way with women. Of course, there's a reason that probably reminds him of a mother, but we'll leave that for some other day. My favorite penguin! Yay!
Oh, Misato!
With some med student.
Lavender perfume? No, Nini.
I always think of this as the lavender perfume episode, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since he got home, I don't think he wants to.
And, well, I'll talk about it later when we get to that particular sequence, but...
Well, you probably want to presage it a little bit now.
Well, she
There's very
knows-
little left after that scene, so.
Well, yeah, but it's just that she knows that that's a very special item, and so that would be a big deal to, like, go on a date and borrow the lavender perfume.
Yeah, the whole fact that she's going on a date with this guy she doesn't even want to go on a date with, you know. It's like, okay, we've never really gotten any hint that Asuka dates or anything like that. It just it suddenly comes in out of the blue. And that's when you start realizing these characters really don't have much of a social life. I mean, we expect that with Shinji.
Right, because all he does is lay in his bed and whine. Big whiner.
But, you know, Asuka is the most popular girl in school.
That's right. You should appreciate your good fortune.
And it's kind of like, but she really doesn't say. I mean, she's got the one friend in Hikari, and other than that, it's kind of like, well.
Well, of course, at the time when Asuka has the famous line about being the most popular girl in the school, it was because, you know, she was new, she was a transfer student, and let's face it, she's hot. And the guys were checking her out. And Pen Pen was voiced by...
Amanda Winley was...
Yep. Like to point that out. This background stuff is pretty darn funny, actually.
Yes.
Little boy Blue is late. That oversexed idiot's never been on time in his whole lazy life.
Can we talk about Su'ulu a little bit? She's was really great as
Yeah, I think this is,
Ritsuko.
again, this is a section where she's really shining. Sue's cattiness as Ritsuko, especially when you realize what she's actually saying later. It's the perfect foil for Allison, who's got the kind of brittle edge, you know, wearing everything on her sleeve, and then Kaji with the total unctuousness, you know, like, you know, oh, yeah. I really like this little scene here. This kind of, it's one of the few cases where you really feel there's some humanity in Gendo, and you get a better idea of what's driving him.
That's when I ran away.
I mean, he's still a bastard, but...
Well, that would go without saying. But it's one of the few times you ever see them together any place.
Well, when one of them's not, you know, yelling at the other.
I mean, normally the only times they're ever sort of together is at Nerve headquarters, but then they're not really together, like, because Gendo is up in his throne.
Right, and it's over a radio, or there's a sheet of glass between them. There's always a separation. It's one of the very few times when there's actually a coming together, and then, of course, it ends with Gendo being whisked away, just as there's the hint of something. And here we go, speaking of being whisked away.
He's leaving now. They've been there for 4 seconds. That's enough. Father and son time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that.
And wait a minute. Who was that in the transport?
Yeah, well, you know.
Was that Wonder Girl? And bye-bye. And then, like, how does Shinji get home now? Or whatever. He's just stranded out in a cemetery. Okay, bye-bye. See ya. And it's the midpoint. Those women longed for the touch of others' lips. Something kisses. I always think this is interesting, the whole cello thing. It's never really touched on that much. Like, you don't see him going for lessons or anything.
Well, he doesn't take them. He actually talks about it. He says that, you know, he took lessons when he was younger, and he keeps doing it because no one's told him not to do it anymore. And he acknowledges that he's not very good. In fact, I think that's what they're talking about right here.
I have a figure with her wearing that dress.
You have a figure of her wearing just about everything, and a couple of cases of her wearing not much at all.
Yeah, I don't have any naked ones.
So why didn't you?
Are you sure about that?
Nobody told me to stop. Yes, I do not have any naked pornographic Asuka figures. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. You got
My
a lot
date
of-
was even more boring than you, she says.
Yes.
I mean, you notice this is a fairly... Oh, yeah, it's a real man. That outfit is pretty conservative compared to some of the other things she wears. Makes me wonder what she might wear if she was going someplace with Kaji.
I don't even want to think about it. It's rather scary.
Like the scene when they go shopping for the bathing suits and she's showing him the skimpy two-piece.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to drink to keep yourself under control.
Yeah. You know, Kaji is a very interesting character, though, because he's very multifaceted. And you think he's just this easygoing guy without a care in the world and very irresponsible, but there's so much more going on.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually extremely responsible, and the whole thing is just this guise he puts on. But I do like it. You're talking about Sue and just Ritsuko in general. It's just her body language here is wonderfully animated, and Sue picked up on that wonderfully.
Doom battles aren't my style.
I think you still have.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Oh, I don't like to talk.
And interesting, you know, their little behind-the-scenes conversation that's going on while Misato is mysteriously away somewhere.
Oh, she's in the bathroom.
Well,
Yeah, it's not mysterious. We know exactly what she's doing.
but it seems like
Just that she's powdering her nose.
that she's been gone a long time. We get the feeling.
Well, should I buy you some fireworks?
Hello.
Yeah, one thinks that he might have actually known that she was approaching when he made that remark.
Just a little wee tad.
Yeah. Now, what was that she put in her purse there?
It's explained in the episode.
I think that lives is composed of these two conflicting forces.
Like men and women.
I'll just be taking my
Well, it is one of the few times that you actually see them wearing different clothes.
Well, that's true. And if you want to talk
Except
about
for
characters,
Kaji.
well, yeah, but
He only has one outfit.
he really only does have one outfit.
It's me.
I think he's got a closet full of all those. I mean, it's very. He kind of just blends in. He's just kind of there.
Misato?
Yeah, she'll be late, so don't wait up for her.
Uh-huh.
What? You mean she won't be back until tomorrow morning?
I doubt it. She's
Look at all the booze.
Mm-hmm.
That's a definitely reputable place to be bringing up children.
Yes.
Drinking till you throw up. How old are you? I'm old enough as
Yeah.
You're damn right.
This actually turns into a really sweet scene.
It is. It's like I said, I really. It was an interesting one to direct because the way we did it is we started with Allison, and I think she got about halfway through, and it just wasn't completely gelling. And then we got Aaron came in and did his lines, and then once he was there, she could play off of him for the back half. And I think we actually ended up having him come back in and tweak a few lines. It was a really, really critical scene as far as the character relationships go, and especially in terms of what happens over the next couple of episodes, is that we see a lot of the barriers that have been there broken down.
A man just like my father.
I remember it was really hard back in those days doing the lip sync because the lipstick that Misato's wearing in the scene and the resolution of the old Avid systems we were using then, you would just get this kind of blob that was sort of pulsating, and you weren't really sure if the mouth was open or not. And
Thought joining Nerve would be a way to say
it ended up that it actually ended up being quite close. We actually went ahead and let the lip sync go a little loose on this because the feel was so much more important. So I think that
Well, and it's a lot of dialogue to get out. If I don't know how much viewers appreciate that's very difficult when you have a really long passage to deliver, and then it falls just a little bit short or a little bit too long or something.
one of the few swear words that actually dropped in, the don't bullshit me Kaji, just realizing that,
well, it's just like right now.
she wouldn't say don't joke with me or anything, and she would pretty much call it.
Yeah.
I have no right to be Shinji's guardian.
no.
Look at me.
And this part here where they're cutting each other off was really, it was just, that's why we had to kind of do it in passes, because they had to have something to play off of.
Use you. Use
Cut
you
it out.
because I'm a coward. I'm pathetic.
It's a great scene.
In case you're wondering how we do that, is the actors just literally kiss the back of their hand. You get a real nice smothered effect.
Yeah, you
And
don't
it's
actually
trying
have
to get that
anybody
to
else in the
time.
booth to kiss.
Well, you couldn't. They'd be in between you and the microphone. But it's always one of those interesting. We get these scenes that are quite. intimate sounding, and yet it's actually an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
One of my favorite scenes of all time.
Yeah, I mean...
The "Hey Shinji, do you want to kiss me?" Because I got nothing better to do. Oh, I got nothing else to do. That's pretty close for me remembering that from 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, what it obviously implies is that, she's curious, because has she ever been kissed before?
Well,
not that
probably
way.
Not.
Yeah, despite these dates with med students.
The bit about his mother, that really kind of put me off a little bit trying to deliver that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I remember the part that's upcoming very vividly.
Mm-hmm. Again, both of you now actually kissing the back of your hands.
Yeah.
And this was great because Spike really was holding his breath this long to get the right sound effects. He did not completely turn blue, but...
And here comes Pin Pin.
Okay, whatever.
There's Spikes.
I'll get a beer.
There's Spike still holding his breath. The best penguin in the world, Pin Pin. And this is the part I remember.
Yeah.
That gargling, I almost choked myself to death. I always have a bottle of water, but I got a cup so that I could spit it out. And I remember doing the gargling and then trying to spit, and I was just laughing.
Yeah. I also point out this is some really amazing work here because as they stumble in the door, they're supposed to sound drunk, but at the same time, they're having to hit marks on this, which is a very difficult thing to do to sound out of control.
Uh-oh. And my line is coming up. Because she comes right up next to him, and so she can smell him. And she says... Lavender perfume. Actually, I've gotten a few emails from people they couldn't hear or understand.
Yeah, in the original mix, in the stereo mix, it's really hard to hear. I think it's a lot cleaner now that it's in 5.1.
That's because you kissed me, you jerk!
And everything is, of course, Shinji's fault.
It's always Shinji's fault, poor guy, but he's an idiot, so it's okay. But since he has got this smell of lavender perfume all over him, she knows that Misato must have been pretty up close to Kaji for a long time.
Okay, and now things start to get really weird. It's like, okay, what exactly are they doing? It's where we really start to get an idea of just how weird and creepy this whole thing is getting.
Flashback. 7 years ago, this happened. LCL plant. Do we?
LCL is the liquid that's...
I know what it is, but what does it stand for? I know that's what they are floating in inside of their plug.
Oh, goodness gracious. If I have my notes with me, I could tell you.
That's okay. I just can't remember.
And the other would appear to be a spy for the Japanese government.
So you knew.
Don't underestimate nerve.
Was this ordered by Ikari?
No,
This was another thing that was a real pain. If you're watching this on a computer monitor or a really, really widescreen TV, you'll see that there's some lip flaps of errands that are right there at the side of the screen. And on our old systems, we really couldn't see them. We had to kind of guesstimate where those things were.
Interesting.
And we actually got it pretty close, but when we did the remix, we had to kind of move things around a little bit to actually hit exactly where it was.
Is it an Ava?
And this is 7 years ago.
Hmm?
This isn't 7 years ago.
No, this is currently.
Right.
This is Adam.
The flashback to Ray, that was 7 years ago.
You're right, Kaji. I don't know.
What was 7 years? I don't know.
I don't know nerve at all.
Okay, I'm sorry, you lost me on that one.
They did it. They did a shot where they were showing 2008, and right now it's 2015. So I was trying to figure out which part of it was in 2008. That's all. In the flashback. And here's one of the many, many renditions of the song I like to call Fry Me to the Moon. With the floating, twirling Naked Ray.
Well, of course, you know.
Yeah, I'm afraid this song has never been quite the same for me since this series.
It definitely takes on a lot of different meanings. So really, from this point on, the entire tone of this series is going to get a lot more introspective and personal. So it's always been one of my personal favorite episodes because I really think that this is where everyone completely clicks in and we know exactly where they're coming from as everything kind of rolls towards the climax.
Yes, so I guess stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Matt Greenfield, I was the ADR writer and director, and with me is...
My name is Sean McCoy. You may have seen my panels around the country at various anime conventions, liable to speak for hours and hours until they kick me out about this show.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way this title affects people. One of the reasons Ava has always been so successful is the fact that you can talk about it for hours and hours. And to the point of fact where even the smallest details can take on multiple meanings. For example...
Sephiroth through the insertion just flashed by the screen.
Exactly. The opening sequence in and of itself probably has more plot hints than most shows will in a couple of episodes.
Even the Cruel Angel's Thesis song, produced in various different ways. The singer right now is slightly ahead of the beat, where the other singers who have done it on the CDs were slightly behind the beat, like when Rei Ayanami's voice actress did it. Interesting things like that, they'll decide to work in.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, then the end credits, of course, being sung entirely differently every time, and with the coloration of the scene often varying. There's a lot of interesting things that go on. Now, this particular episode delves a little deeper into Shinji as a character than we have in the past.
Yes, so the Unit 1 has just... gone berserk and is ingesting the S2 engine, which is basically the engine that would allow it to act without an umbilical cable. So it's kind of if you look at it as the umbilical cable as the strength a parent would provide their child, it's a leash and it's a source of energy. He now is kind of growing out of that. So he's kind of becoming rebellious youth in a way as he's becoming, as the Eva 1's becoming rebellious.
And just as a side point, note that the hand has suddenly become far more human than it's ever been before.
Happy to see Kaji alive.
Indeed. And, of course, there we were seeing, was that the face of Lilith, or what was that?
Well, it's remarked about by many fans as being in Ezekiel. It's extremely vague, and trying to find a biblical source for everything in this show is, it's more work than I could bear. But people do try. You can look at it in many different ways. There's many different theories from various different faiths about this. You can look at it from a Zoroastrian point of view, if you like, about the sources of monotheism, and it's open to all these interpretations, much like religion is, because it's symbols that have been reused and recycled and perfected over thousands of years. And that's one of the reasons why the show is just so universal and so personal for so many people. It's because it kind of uses the same tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and in that theme, I think what Anno and the Gainax artists have done is, by pulling together symbols from a multitude of cultures, they have kind of been able to draw attention to things. I love the cat pillow.
Yeah, nice pillow.
The cat pillow is always important. That's Ritsuko's pillow, by the way. But they're able to throw things into contrast without being overtly blatant to the original intended audience. I think actually people in the United States tend to get a harder slam from the show in some ways than in Japan, because having been born into a Christian-based society, which, like it or not, there's no two ways about it, that's what America basically is, a lot of these symbols carry a lot more weight than they would in Japan, where Christianity is not the dominant religion.
Absolutely. And then we could look at the way episode 1 is filled with reluctant Messiah images, the angel itself representing the reluctant Messiah, giving back stigmata, giving back a cross explosion, kind of dealing with Shinji's issues, represented in his conflict. They're powerful, but they don't actually have to mean, it's not specifically a Christ figure.
Exactly. And that's why I think a lot of people will tend to read certain angles into things, which may or may not have been the original intent. I do always wonder why, for example, Chairman Keel wears that little visor in a completely black room. It's like, okay, what is he hiding?
Well, he's hiding a lot. He's hiding the gateway to the soul. In the Kabbalah, it mentions that the eyes of Adam cast light upon the world, so no sin and no untruth can be found, or can hide. So basically, all he sees is absolute. Where Keel basically sees nothing. At least, I guess you can say, in Shinji's worldview.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we've got just the entire concept of Zele in general and the meaning of Zele versus the meaning of nerve, per se.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you look at it, you can use the ego, superego, id comparison, if you'd like, to see the relationship of it. There's so many layers, but basically what it does is it provides structure that is proven to be the human condition. I mean, it's what art's been dealing with for so long. And what is psychoanalysis besides entertainment from the 20s? I mean, it's these days it goes in and out of fashion, but it's basically a way of it's kind of an entertainment. And this show, uses the tools of psychoanalysis to just get deeper to the human condition, which is all art is about, is reconciling the human condition, which tends to be suffering. And Shinji's overall issue is growing up, becoming a man, dealing with opening up to other people. I mean, we see in earlier episodes, he is not defined at all. He is completely blank. Yet later on, he develops friendships. He goes dancing with Asuka. He, there's all these things, and he's kind of becoming more and more complex. And we just look at this all through that allegory, and now Shinji is basically lost in thought at this point. He's inside the Eva. He's reconciling the different faces that he's seen, and because he basically just took the first giant step to becoming a man in the figurative sense by taking in the S2 engines. Now he has his own sense of potency, the Eva does, which is, in my view, a kind of an extension. It's his mature form that he's growing into. It's a form of power and strength that he'll have to agree with. So he's kind of losing innocence at this point. He's dealing with all these sides of people he's found, and he's going to have to be reborn. It's basically the same as a late baptism in a way. He's being reborn into the world with more knowledge.
Yeah, we also have the recurring theme coming on here of the bandages, of everyone being wrapped, of the wounds. Besides the Eva itself, of course, Ritsuko is bound, Rei is bound. There's all of these things going on, indicating that great damage has been occurring. And now it has to be undone.
Absolutely. So he
This is, by the way, one of those odd little bits that's hard to explain is why is the suit floating there?
Well, if you look at it, if this is all Shinji's worldview, that would be his, as they say, residual self-image. So it's basically he is defining himself. Outside of himself, he is an Eva pilot. That's what people see him as. And so that's basically all he thinks people see of him is the plug suit, in a way. His insides are hidden, and no one really understands him. And Asuka happens to be very proud of it. She always leaves the sensors on her head as hair clips.
Yeah, the hoo-hoos. They are actually technically called hoo-hoos.
Hoo-hoos. Oh, excellent.
Hoo-hoos, yes. We actually never had a name for them, and Tiffany started calling them hoo-hoos while we were doing the show. And actually, that's kind of become, on the live-action motion picture discussions, that actually became the technical term for them.
And I love Asuka saying, what are you, stupid? I always like to say, you blockhead. I always compared these to Peanuts characters.
Yeah, we'd actually kind of wanted to do that, but the proper flaps were incorrect. Actually, on one of the other volumes, the little special devoted to Asuka is called That Little Red-Haired Girl. So...
Okay, here we have Shinji defining enemy as first something that's attacking him, and now he's defining an enemy as the thing that's causing him pain now, which is, his father. His father's the one who's saying grow up, basically. He's the one that brought him back to Tokyo 3, to basically say, you have to, right now, grow up, go suffer pain, and, be a man. And what initially gets him to do it? It's a damsel in distress. So we see that women generally are the thing that gets Shinji to do anything, even though he's extremely shy. It's basically traditional chauvinists, for the girls kind of thing. And his father is the one saying, yeah, you got to do this. You have to grow up and suffer, go out into the world and suffer. So his outsides may be attacked. Other people are telling him, the enemy are the angels, which are all very representative of his own internal struggles. I mean, the fourth angel, the second one we see, is basically him dealing with other people in a way, because when he lets his friends into the entry plug, so he's kind of growing at every angel. And in the last one, he overcame something that destroyed his female friends quite summarily, and he ingested it. And, cannibalism, the idea of taking the power from something, that's a very primitive masculine urge, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. And it also rolls back into the whole religious concept with the idea of consuming the flesh and the body and the blood of Christ, if you want to draw that analogy. He's basically taking something into himself that wasn't necessarily there before, that he hadn't found before.
Exactly. And so here we see the same point of weakness that's existed in all the angels he's fought before is now revealed, and he's starting to other people can start to see that the angels are there for a reason. They are really harbingers of some message. There's a lot more going on here than a simple mecha show. Well, obviously that's clear at this point, but
indeed, always find it very fascinating that for a show that's supposedly a giant robot show, the robots figure so little. Of course, they're not even robots actually, but the fact that they figure so little into the story itself. You go multiple episodes where you don't have a single robot battle.
It's really about people and the story between people. Mm-hmm. And my favorite quote is somebody compared. They said, if you compare Evangelion to a mecha show, it's kind of like calling Twin Peaks a cop drama. There's just
exactly. This a little bit here also, the other thing I always find fascinating is everything is about being in transit from one place to the other. We are constantly seeing Shinji and the other characters on means of transportation that seem to go on endlessly, endless escalators, elevator trips that seem to take forever, trams that go forever, all modes of transportation, all implying that he's going somewhere, but we don't know where it is yet.
Because he doesn't know.
Exactly.
But we're being taken along on the ride. And this is a good primer for episode 25 and 26, because basically he is suffering from definition. His environment causes him pain, but because of his environment, he can move forward, he can move back, he can grow, he sees contrast in things, he can change. And so what we're seeing is change.
Mm-hmm. And now starting to understand the fact that he is being divined by the way other people see him. This is what they're telling him to do. You're getting the multiple voices.
Mm-hmm.
Asuka, Toji, Kinsuke, Father, they all respect
his perception of himself is based upon the perception of others. Again, going to the last episodes and that wraparound.
Actually, yeah. And basically, keep in mind, Shinji is going over episode 26 on his DAT tape over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. 25, 26, over and over again.
be nice to me. I fought so
And yet now here he is with Rey, and they're both going someplace, but opposite sides of the same journey.
And it's interesting that Rey is kind of his passenger and is coming along with him, and you can kind of see if Rey is kind of she's the false part of everybody. She's she fills in the gap of woman that Shinji is looking for, but she's fake. She's not real. Okay, here's here's Shinji seeing the various different sides of women in front of him and kind of inappropriately thinking of them.
It would be really awesome. You ought to appreciate your good fortune.
Yes, you should.
And
Do you want to become one?
and so here, she's being very clinical in the way she's saying it. You know, do you want this? It's kind of like,
Want to become one with me? To be of one mind and body and soul?
and anytime Rei attempts to smile, he should be concerned.
Yeah.
And so here, I like to draw this to the very, very end of the end of Evangelion movie, all three of them layered over each other. Because if you look at Asuka at the very, very, very end, she's kind of sharing qualities with all three of those people. Oh, here we have Destrudo libido graph. It's basically showing that he's going too far into the self-destructive instinct, which is basically the thing saying that you will fail and you should not try and you shouldn't do anything because you'll ultimately die. Or it's tied in with Thanatos, which is basically the destructive instinct altogether, the anti-creative instinct. So here's another primer for episode 25 and 26, where the definitions of people is being simplified down to katakana. Oh, yeah, there was kanji there. But Shinji isn't really seeing much depth in people. The forms where Asuka and Misato and Rei were taking before were very simplified. And he's having trouble reconciling all that, I suppose.
He's still basically trying to see everything in a simple way.
A childish way.
Exactly. He has not put that aside yet. And because of that, he cannot progress to the next step because he cannot realize that there's a complexity that has to be understood.
The key to the Jungian definition of self is the reconciliation of opposites, the realizing that there is contradiction in the world. And this is the key to Adam and Eve leaving the Garden of Eden. They enter a world of contradiction. I mean, Adam was initially bored because he was everything. He was a reflection of God. And so basically there wasn't anything that wasn't him. And so there's no point in being. There's no want. There was no need. There was no hunger. There was only stuff necessary to exist. And when he asks for Eve, he basically asks to have something taken away from him so he'll have something to strive for. And the emptiness that Shinji feels is basically in the shape of Asuka, if you view her as Eve, as I think you're forced to, and I think is the correct interpretation. Here we have Misato wakes up Shinji in his introspective nightmare.
Inside the Ava.
And now Shinji, the inner child, is dealing with the inner child. Again, the deformed self that he's trying to define for himself. He's just childish and simple, and kind of like when you're when you're in first grade, you can stay home from school and live a simple life. If you're play that you're sick, but he's now realizing that he has to grow up.
That which is.
And extremely complex dialogue coming out of Misato.
Yes.
It's your
And
future. Only you.
basically, it's just saying this world is what you make of it, and if you stay alone, if you try to get back into the Garden of Eden, try to get back to the point of simplicity, there's no point in living. You have nothing, and you have nothing to gain, and Misato understands.
I think in a lot of ways, the character Misato is one of the ones who's least delved into in Eva. There's a tremendous amount of depth to her, more or less as a forerunner for what the paths the other characters have to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting to draw the parallel between the two generations, the three generations indeed. Ritsuko's mom, Gendo, Fuyutsuki, and then Kaji, Ritsuko and Misato, and then Asuka, Rei, and Shinji. I find a very interesting point that Sadamoto decided to put in the manga, basically saying, Asuka says, "Hey, where'd you go on your school trip?" And Kaji says, "Well, actually, that was the second impact." So Kaji seems very, very comfortable and very aware, and kind of what Shinji should try for. Okay, here we have Shinji passing through everybody's favorite symbol of birth, which is water, and passing through it, and so it's coming out of the womb, and he is reborn naked in the world. So now think of it as he basically has the S2 engine in him now. You can have a spine now. Granted, we're not allowed to appreciate it very much with everything that happens in later episodes, because he's not given time to rest, really. The troubles don't stop coming. And for some deeper analysis into all this, or just good for any fan to read, Carl Horn, a friend of mine who handles the Viz manga of Neon Genesis Evangelion, recommends that you read Foucault's Pendulum by Umberto Eco. It's sort of like a Da Vinci Code kind of book. It's just much cooler, and it helps you understand this. Also, the whole concept of monotheism is very important in this, because that was the first religious style that basically had a well of evil, a concept that things can be evil and things can be good. Otherwise, polytheistic religions tend to have different characters that represent different human traits, but not a well of evil and a well of good. And A History of God by Karen Armstrong, it traces the evolution of God as a concept through all the popular Western faiths, etc. And it helps you understand their traditions and how they might influence this. And
especially when you compare the Western religion's perception of God versus the average Eastern religion. The biggest thing is that in Western religions, almost consistently, God is removed. He is in his heaven. And in Eastern religions are more about looking internally to find something that's there that can be nurtured and grown. It's not 100%, but it's a very, very common difference.
And it's very interesting that the angels come from some nondescript place, and the way they attack, they're not warned about it when they're 10 miles out the periphery. It's when the confrontation occurs, basically. So they could just appear. So they are coming from some point that is different than what Shinji understands. So it's not. It's similar to the monotheistic Zoroastrian concepts.
And something very vague going on here in the soundtrack in the background. It's like, oh man, exactly where did he put that? And there's quite a bit that could be read into that as well.
Yes, the carnal knowledge is being hidden.
Pretty literally.
Yes. So.
This is for you. The first time.
If only Shinji could learn so much as Kaji knows.
But ultimately, we learned that Kaji doesn't know it all. In fact, Kaji makes several grave errors.
But he's very accepting of that.
He's accepting because he has hit that point of understanding and realizing that he can't know everything. He can only do the best he can do.
It represents one of the paths that Shinji could follow. He could become cold and terrible like his father. He could become playboyish like Kaji. And somewhere in the middle is where he really needs to go.
And for once, we have an instrumental version. In and of itself, interesting.
And there's so much that could be said about the end sequence of the show.
Indeed.
What our perspective is, the way the moon moves, all these things. It's just there's so much.
Yeah, it is. It's just again, it's what does the moon mean in so many cultures? Why is Rei upside down? Hi, welcome to episode 22 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm Matt Greenfield. I was the ADR writer and director for the episode.
Hi, my name is Sean McCoy. You may have seen my panels around the country at various anime conventions.
And, hi, I'm Tiffany Grant. I was that feisty little red-headed girl, Asuka Langley Soryu. Charmed, huh?
Okay, so we're trying something a little different. Just kind of commenting on the episode, and Sean has stepped in because I think I've imparted as much Ava knowledge as I can without getting double and triple redundant after doing so many of these commentary tracks. So this episode focuses primarily on the character of Asuka.
Yay!
And I guess, of course, we have one set of opinions based on the character here, having been working on the dub for so long. Of course, Sean, you've been involved kind of on the periphery of the manga.
I've spent countless hours with Carl Horn, the editor of the U.S. manga release, and had many discussions of all the complexities of the show, and I'd like to share them with you now.
Sounds fantastic.
That's great. I'm always impressed when I'm on panels with you, Sean. You're like, oh, I was just that little redheaded girl, but Sean knows stuff.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
And we were actually talking a little while ago about the opening credits and how they resembled certain other shows, so maybe...
Yes, Jerry Anderson's UFO bears a tremendous resemblance to the opening of Ava because the makers of Ava, Gainax, happen to be huge fans. And you find that almost everything Gainax does really has a fan at heart. They are the greatest fans on Earth.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and of course, the date of September 13th, which is pivotal in Ava, of course, is also a Jerry Anderson reference going back to Space 1999.
Oh, that's cool.
Pivotal in my youth, watching Space 1999, Thunderbirds, etc.
Okay,
look at sad little
this
Asuka.
Is really this in episode 20 are kind of where we really start going introspective on the characters and burrowing down into the psyche, even more so than we already have. I mean, before we've had them vent a lot, but now we're actually getting inside their heads.
A little bit to understand, what's behind Asuka. She's not merely dedicated to becoming a pilot. She's really dealing with something as severe as Shinji is.
Yeah, and, of course, when I first started working on the show, and as I was recording it, I only watched, those particular set of episodes that we would be working on, so I didn't know what was happening next, and it was quite an impact on me when I watched these episodes for the first time, and the show was getting very heavy, and, we're flashing back on my mother's death, and we see how she's already at 5 years old started closing out the whole outside world and building up her little emotional wall.
But she inevitably does grow up.
Yeah, as we all must do. And this is kind of a sad time for Asuka, I think. She had this natural talent and ability, and now her sync ratio is nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's there's a change. We've already basically referred to it in the episode. Is that she is going through puberty, and exactly when it starts we're not sure, but it's obviously starting to weigh very heavily. And of course, there's the entire theme running through Ava with the whole smell of blood and so on, and that I think that's a big part of it.
You can see the Ava as an analogy to the mature form that a child kind of grows into and doesn't understand. It's awkward. It's languid. I mean, it's very new to them. And Asuka is denying it at this point. She doesn't like the fact that she's becoming a woman, and that kind of parallels her problems with the Ava.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always felt that the Avas themselves are also emblematic of women as the mother, because basically you're floating inside a womb sac filled with an amniotic fluid. And so every time they go in and out of the Ava, they are essentially going through the process of birth over and over again.
Indeed. Much like in Pulp Fiction, with the Band-Aid on the back of Marcellus Wallace's neck, it's where God would put in your soul and Satan would take it out. Kind of gives some background to Pulp Fiction, another complicated show.
That was a movie I didn't understand.
Well, now through Ava, through the tools of Ava.
A movie full of references to other movies, like Touch of Evil, for example.
A couple of their ground rules you should keep in mind. Hideaki Anno studied the Kabbalah in various different forms, not the pure religious Kabbalah, but interpretations and text. So he kind of took his own angle on it. One of the interesting concepts in the Kabbalah is the definition of woman initially as mother, because that's the first other self, as mentioned in episode 26, you realize. And it's something besides you. And so woman initially starts as an asexual motherly figure. And as Shinji is realizing, and it's very, very shocking to his sense of security, that women are much more complex than that. And Masato represents the antithesis, trying to represent mother, and then Asuka is kind of the combination of all the mothers. So Rei.
And speaking of mother, guess who's calling on the phone?
the artifice of mother. So Shinji is kind of reconciling the different combination, different sides of woman that as broken apart in the Kabbalah and various other faiths and interpretations. And Asuka kind of represents everything dealing, she represents the contradiction that Shinji's dealing with.
And, I'll just interject this here because I get a lot of questions about this phone call. I mean, emails and at conventions and stuff. And there's nothing that's really earth-shattering that happens in this phone call.
She's actually lying to her adoptive mother.
Yeah, this is her stepmother she's talking to on the phone. And she puts on a show for them that she has this wonderful, warm relationship with her. And they're really just chit-chatting. And also the part where she flips her hair, she says, "Oh, yes, I'm very popular with the boys." That's what the line is there. But it's just a very surface conversation. They're not discussing anything major.
It builds up the cathartic moment where she actually admits something to Shinji, which is pivotal. She's kind of opening up with him, and her AT field in a way, the thing protecting her sense of self, which is so injured, strikes out.
And then, she starts opening up to him and all of a sudden realizes, wait a minute, I don't do that. That's not me. I don't open up to other people. And then she blames it on him. She yells at him that it's his fault. And he's just standing there.
Did you ever notice that Ritsuko has, claws? I always find that interesting.
And I like the fact that she has the dark eyebrows, proving that her hair color is dyed from the get-go, kind of showing that she's got something to hide.
Yeah, well, of course, we see that in the flashback episode, of course, that she did have brown hair in college.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. So in some ways she wants to be different than her mother.
I was going to say, I think also because, her mother had brown hair, so maybe she wants to be different than her mother.
Likewise, the cigarettes covered with the lipstick, I think that is kind of an interesting little bit there. Mm-hmm. The relationship between Misato and Ritsuko I've always found fascinating because they're supposedly presented as friends, and yet there's an adversarial relationship going on underneath that's... Misato seems almost unaware of at times. There's very definitely... Ritsuko has some deep simmering emotions buried here.
Yes, it's very similar to the relationship between Rei, Shinji, and Asuka, the Kaji, Ritsuko, and Masato relationship. Mm-hmm. But they kind of represent, going too far. Ritsuko is not shown in a sexual light. She's obviously a fan service to some extent, but Masato is extremely affectionate, extremely sexual. But so you can see that the inaccessibility of Rei is very similar to the inaccessibility of Ritsuko, and the over-accessibility of Masato is very similar to the over-accessibility of Asuka.
Yeah, and then as we were discussing, of course, Ritsuko not being a natural blonde implies that she has a lot of things to hide.
And the last part of that parallel is, how does Shinji compare to Kaji? And I like to compare this to Fight Club, where if you would put them in Fight Club, Shinji would be the Ed Norton character, and Kaji would be kind of the enabling Brad Pitt character. Mm-hmm. And I like to look at Evangelion as purely the worldview of Shinji, as all the characters kind of represent how Shinji is growing. Early in the episode, when Asuka is first introduced, and there's a very intimate moment inside her clothing, inside her entry plug. Shortly after that, Masato and Ritsuko are having discussions saying, geez, we sure learned a lot about the enemy today, didn't we? And it's kind of like Shinji's sense of woman is developing at that point. He for the first time, met a female his age that kind of going through something like he is. And Rei could be any age, as mentioned, wind-up doll. She doesn't get her period, she is not a sexual figure. And it's not that she's denying it. I honestly think, like, as a character, obviously, as we find out later, if we compare it to Angel's eating of the tree of life, not the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they would not be sexual, hence Quadu in episode 24. But she honestly is mother. She's a pure sense of mother, the non-sexual woman, which Shinji is dealing with. And as we see in episode 25 and 26 in the movies, Shinji really develops much more complex definitions for woman, and it's kind of like what he goes through. That's like the process of becoming a man, is dealing with that reconciliation, dealing with, woman can be both mother and wife.
As long as it's not the same person.
Oh, yes.
Which may be something that he's having issues with as well.
For years, I've been trying to find a Nimrod comparison. A Babylonian, the guy who built the Tower of Babel, he married his mother and decreed that no one should do that because he had a bad time of it.
I would, personally advise against that. It didn't work that well for Oedipus.
Rolling on the whole theme is the little conversation we just had there. Asuka is basically telling the Eva that it's her toy and it should do what she wants, which of course is not the way the real world works.
No.
Well, as we see, the Asuka's mother isn't really there much. She can't really. She's not providing the motherly role. She is empty in Asuka's eyes, worthless, and so. Asuka sees the Eva Unit 2 not working in a very similar way. So it's if she could deal with her mother, she would be able to use the Unit 2 again, as demonstrated later on.
Yeah. Much later.
True.
And Asuka has not been feeling well in this whole episode, which, as we've mentioned, because she's gotten her period, presumably for the first time. They don't ever really say, but I've always kind of assumed that was the case.
Her reaction is very extreme.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I believe there's euphemism suffering of Eve's disease.
Ah.
So.
Indeed, which would be very appropriate to this.
Indeed. There's information about the burden of Adam is kind of a way of describing every guy's requirement to pass on, his name amongst everything else. And so Shinji's kind of dealing with that, the opening up to somebody so he could, basically most of the show is kind of about sex, because that's a very important thing in the development of men from boys who have issues to growing out of puberty. So
they can change from being boys that have issues into men that have issues.
Yes, and then we have animation about issues, and then we all work through it.
That's right.
With lots of large phallic symbols. But anyway,
it's hard to keep away from the issue that everything's just about sex. Freud. Yeah, some of his terminology is used in this. The whole concept of destrudo, which you mentioned later on, and is hidden on a couple of graphs throughout the series. All these concepts, they're originally coined by Freud, used by Jung, and perfected by a guy named E. Weiss. Apologize. Is that how I pronounce it?
Weiss, yeah.
Thank you very much. Basically, that a person is defined by their desires and the way they there's two parts of them. The part of them that says you can succeed, which is the eros, and the part that says you will fail, which is the strudo or the thanatos. And basically it's a protective measure, because if you think you can do everything, you'll jump off a cliff and die. And it's just that Shinji is indulging too much in destrudo, and we see that Asuka is going down that exact same path.
Well, she's having a pretty severe reaction. She's earlier in the episode had basically no sync ratio, and she always has the feeling of having to prove herself and show that she can do everything. And of course, this is turning out badly for her, trying to prove that.
And there's a little German coming up on the screen there, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff hidden in subliminal flashes here. If you look real close, frame by framing on the DVD, you'll see there's a lot of German.
Which I recommend to everyone, because that's my favorite pastime, is frame by frame, all this stuff.
Yeah, it's going by too fast right now for me to even read it or tell you what it says at this moment. So.
it's not happy.
No, it's nothing that's happy. What I always think is interesting is the pilot, whatever they're experiencing, like you could see the Unit 2 is mimicking her actions, like with the clutching of the head and everything. It almost like the Ava is feeling her pain, so to speak, and perhaps it is.
And the way she's being attacked is like it's attack against her femininity. It's Shinji would not be attacked the same way. Shinji would not have the same response to the way she's being attacked. And if the Ava is the mature adult form of her in a way, the thing that she has to grow into, then it's suffering with her. It's and one thing I get a lot at conventions is that oh wait, you're not supposed to be able to feel what's going on with the Ava. It's all technology and blah 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 this and blah 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 that. But clearly throughout the entire series there is there's no separation between the individual and the robot.
Right. Well, they talk about this. Everything that they have on, they're like completely interfaced with it. They're in the fluid.
As if they're the inner child to its troubled personality.
And anytime anything is said in Ava, you should automatically doubt it, because one of the basic rules is that what you were told is not always true. And in fact, most of the characters are operating under completely false pretenses based upon the small part of the knowledge they actually have. And when it's all put together, then it's like, oh, wait a second, they were completely wrong.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the words that keeps flashing up there is toad, which is dead.
Yeah.
And the other word is nine, which means no. And that's something that she's yelling a lot, and she doesn't want to die, and she feels that this is what's happening. Actually, I'll say this is interesting, is when we went and did the director's cut, I had to re-record everything. I ended up re-recording all of my dialogue which was quite a bizarre experience, doing that, having recorded it so many years before and redoing the exact same thing. And of course, trying to keep the performance as close to the original as possible. For all those people like you, Sean, that have watched it, like 100 times. Well, that's not the way she inflected that line 6 years ago.
Oh, I have faith.
Hopefully we brought some new nuances to it based upon new understanding. I mean, it was a technical reason we had to re-record it, because we were trying to put together so many disparate elements, making everything mesh. And since she did have new dialogue, actually, Asuka probably had more new dialogue than anybody in the entire show.
And very meaningful dialogue, I must say.
For the director's cut, yeah.
There is no guarantee of that.
If we don't do something.
I'd like to introduce a concept called Joyce's Epiphany. It's used extensively by Gainax and other favorite directors like David Lynch, etc. The basic idea is if you tell somebody something very clearly and directly, they're going to accept it, go, okay, that's evidence, and move on. Now, if you're vague about something, they're going to have to try to figure it out. And then it becomes a personal experience, and there's more depth to it. So all of Evangelion is basically built like that, where you're investing your own personality into this show, and what you're getting back is perfectly meant for you, because it's you that's it's reflecting against it, and this is why there's so much vagary in what's happening right now and throughout the rest of the series.
Oh, it's like a Rorschach test. Everybody brings out of Ava what they take in, and each time you go back in, you're taking in things you've absorbed since then, things that you've learned about talking with other people about it, and you start to see those perspectives. And a lot of it is really so much window dressing. It's there not because it's important in and of itself, but it draws attention to what is there.
There's never been a work of art done so well to be packaged so accessibly and yet have so much to give. Just what's going on now, you'd never see this in television prior, but just think about how perfectly accessible this show is.
Yeah, it's fascinating that the imagery can be interpreted in so many different ways that depending upon your frame of mind, you get this, or you get that, or you get this. Just the entire show to have been built upon the whole basis of, okay, it's a giant robot show that isn't a giant robot show. The levels of complexity are just quite amazing.
Do we have enough time to talk about the Lance of Longinus?
I think we have enough time to talk about the Lance of Longinus.
Well, you can look at it in various different ways and various different modalities, if you'd like. If you look at it as a tool of nihilism, it goes one direction, and the one direction is destruction. And you can look at it as a phallic form that isn't creative, so it'd be a male destructive force misused. You could. And then there's the whole, working it into the entire conspiracy of instrumentality, which mentioned in an earlier episode. Instrumentality was originally planned by Gendo. It's the entire Third Impact, maybe Sally, but he actually kind of wrote the script according to episode 20.
Right, he wrote the script, but the script is a work in progress, and that's really the big thing. Is there is the plan that Gendo has, there's the plan that Zele has, and there are the human beings put in the path of the plan who, by being there, cause everything to alter and change. Nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen. It's only supposed.
And it's all desperate human weakness on Gendo's part.
This is a heavy scene.
Yeah.
I just...
And notice the blue water reflecting the blue is antithesis of the red. The caution tape. That is amazing composition and design right there. And the fact that she's hiding her emotions even from the audience right now. I mean, that's just so well designed.
Don't you know that I'd rather have died?
And hate's a natural response when that's what you feel for yourself.
And once again, the cicadas are playing in the background, which is yet another constant running theme.
There are no seasons left.
There are no seasons left, exactly. And, of course, cicadas normally in Japanese culture establish, the rebirth, because they bury and they come back, and they bury and they re-come back, and all of a sudden it's like, and I can't remember which episode specifically they first mentioned that they go all the time now. That everything has just been completely, and again, this fits into the whole idea of Shinji's mental state, where everything is being reviewed over and over again, as seen in the Super Dat Man.
Absolutely. Episode 26 is going over and over in his head constantly, much like it is in the audiences. And if we draw a comparison to, say, the Garden of Eden, if we look at the timeline of that, this would be immediately after he's told he's going to be cast out, and immediately before he's actually cast out, in a way that he's just now learning about the contradictions. Like if you look at the Garden of Eden, it's a world without contradiction. It's day without night, food without hunger, and basically simplicity and boredom. But Shinji, as he learns more about women, is basically realizing that there's more to the world, and he's have to reconcile these contradictions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hi, this is the beast that shouted Ava at the heart of the world, and welcome to the WTF episode of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm Matt Greenfield, the ADR director. Okay, and with me is...
I'm Sean McCoy. You may have seen my panels around the country at various anime conventions, and if Gainax wanted me to, I would be selling flowers on the street corner to fund Tokyo 3.
So... here we get to the very, very last episode of the TV series. The one that I think really, between this one and the previous one, totally established this series as something unlike anyone. I mean, it was already way beyond anything expected.
The closest thing ever to it is probably the last episode of The Prisoner, and still that isn't a fair comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is an odd... way to end what has theoretically been an action series. Of course, the show never really was an action series. It's all, as we realize in this episode and the previous episode,
it's a very personal story.
Something that's been occurring in the mind of a young boy who's having a lot of problems.
Indeed. And we have a very interesting name for this episode. It's a reference to The Beast That Shouted Love at the Heart of the World by Harlan Ellison, which is a jolly little story about a guy who decides to put a bomb on his mother's carry-on on a plane. The plane blows up, describes how the pieces of the plane falls in a schoolyard, and then the same guy brings Uzis to a football game and starts firing into the crowd. What an interesting comparison to Shinji's condition.
It certainly is. You don't put weapons of mass destruction in the hands of 14-year-olds is the basic motto.
Especially ones with such issues. I would say probably this beginning dialogue is probably the most important to understanding Shinji's condition. It's actually quite direct and quite clear, saying exactly what is going on. And I think that's why it's so often misunderstood.
Because in Ava, up until this point, basically everything has been misdirection and hints, and suddenly you come out and state something. And the one thing we've learned in Ava so far is when someone tells you something, they're probably lying, which is kind of, I think, the point that you shouldn't trust anybody.
And notice how just doll-like all these characters are at this moment, much like the end of episode 25, where they're hardly in character, they're speaking monotone, and you don't have Asuka being exuberant, and you don't have Rei being so mopey. So
That is why I wish to become one.
And so it's kind of like that they're just little voices in his head that have taken the shape of various different characters to kind of explain himself to himself.
Very much so. And really, I think the biggest and most interesting part of it all is that once you've actually watched this episode, if you go back and start watching the other episodes, you start seeing, okay, this really was leading up to this all along, but it was done in such a way that it comes around at you sideways. You don't really expect this.
It's important to note that this is basically the exact same narrative as the films. Oh, there we have a censored Misato hand, obviously, image of sex, and censored water, carrying on. The imagery that flies by is also worth closer analysis. But what we have here is basically the same things happening as in the it's called the brain splatter section of the end of Evangelion, but basically put in extremely subjective terms, basically as direct to Shinji as possible what these symbolically mean. We see later on Ritsuko and Misato disposed of much like they are in the film, and other bits that follow perfectly in line with the film.
This is because running away can be far worse. That's why you do not wish to escape.
And notice that these characters are chastising a bit more than in episode 25 when they were kind of just informing him of things. Like they were initially in 25 kind of describing the situation, where now they're like saying, hey, what are you going to do about it?
Well, also in 25, the point of view is broken into multiple character views. It's not just Shinji's point of view, and here it's finally focused completely onto this is simply Shinji's view. Before we saw the Asuka aspect, we saw the Misato aspect, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, no, now this is everyone else has gotten the picture, Shinji. It's time for you to get on the bandwagon, or not.
Yeah, here he's basically, this is Shinji's choice. He's trying to maintain praise because the only benefit of external contact he has developed so far, and understood so far. So he's now saying, oh, well, if I'm not an Ava pilot, what's the point in existing?
I've got to do it! No, that's not true. You don't have to. No, you just think you do. No, you're wrong.
There we go. And so they're disagreeing with him now, saying, hey, why don't you just live for a little bit, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting, and of course we have a lot of these symbols that are popping up are reflective of various aspects. We've had a number of very phallic symbols with the power drill and the guns and so on.
We also had a little pen sign earlier on. So here we see symbols from other people's lives that are actually very pivotal in his own. The glass is very, very important to Rei. The doll, kind of the source of all issue for Asuka. And notice this is, parallel to an earlier episode, where episode 20, I believe, where they were supporting him, and now he, in his introverted world of no optimism, assumes everyone hates him. And it's a different order than in episode 20.
Every person in existence must hate me.
No, that's just what you imagine.
Yes!
Once again, Ray sums it up nicely. If we assume that, in fact, everything only exists in your mind, Well, okay, she does hate everything, but that's Asuka.
Just a practical Asuka.
The bicycle that he has not yet learned to ride.
And it's interesting. Okay, here we have the Matt Channel Shinji, as I like to call him. And this brings up if I could paraphrase Picasso here, art is something inside a frame that gets its value because it's a mirror that selects what reflects back to you. This is basically in a classical way of saying that Shinji is what's inside that frame there, and he is what he has seen. And a lot of it is, well, all of it is these conflicts and people he's met throughout his life.
It's also a very Magritte type image in general. It's just the object. You would expect this to go on behind him instead of inside him, and that again emphasizes the fact that this has all been brought internally. That there is nothing except
Asuka, because that's the one thing that was outside.
Exactly.
And the use of titles. Brilliant. It forces us. It's absolute information. It forces us to think of this point. Can't be subjective like things are earlier in the series.
And remember some of the earlier comments in Rei's poetry about rain and the sun, and contrast it with the way Shinji is feeling right now.
The beginning of a day.
And Asuka's overall nihilism.
I mean, they are just. I mean, in the end, Rei and Asuka are the alternate parts of Shinji's personality in that context. And if Shinji is in the middle, then Asuka is the id, and Rei is the superego. One is the conscience, and the other is the bestial input. And then Shinji there in the middle. Which one do I follow? Which is me?
Yes, and it also brings about the choices of man. Do I keep the image of woman as mother, or do I view the image of woman as wife or lover? And Shinji, for security reasons, tries to stay with the mother throughout. Sees Rei as a bit more comfortable, but eventually knows Asuka must be the one chosen because that's the only way that the human race will continue.
Yeah, I think that's partially also a good explanation for the popularity of the character of Rei. Is she is easy, and not just in the sexual sense. It's like she is very much something that can simply be brought in and does not require anything on the part of Shinji to adapt to.
Oh, and see his response about his mother just told him something, and now he's actually getting affected by it much more. And this all falls parallel exactly to the film. His character arc is exactly the same as in the film. And here he's losing definition. And if you were an animator, well, you exploring these issues, you'd say, okay, well, it's I'm simplifying the art to its bare parts to deal with just the issue, and so he's disintegrating as artwork into base. He was a layout drawing, and he's going to become simpler and simpler.
It's rather reminiscent of the old, I believe Chuck Jones directed it, the Point in the Line.
Yes. Yes.
Which I've always thought was a big influence for this scene.
Well, and we see other things. We have Xeroxes of parts of the film. Artifice copies. We have everything is kind of false, but
More and no less than the sum of my self-awareness. But I don't understand.
That's the greatest line. Myself is myself. But it's important because it reminds us that this is a medium, and we're exploring concepts with a medium, and it's forcing you to deal with these ideas, and that's the greatest drawing ever. We call that animation ball and toast when an object wraps around another object like that, where Asuka is basically imposing on Shinji. Yes.
But I still don't understand myself.
Yes.
I don't even know what it is that makes me myself. How can
Okay, and once again, now we've got the three aspects of femininity confronting Shinji, which is something that he has been basically trying to come to grips with the entire show, is, his sexuality and his relationship with the female.
And notice their position where he's facing Asuka, but kind of hiding from her. But now she's standing straight up, so she's no longer attacking him graphically. So he is basically just choosing between three almost equally heighted things.
a world
So here you have Shinji San's definition. So think of, if we compare this to like Adam and Eve, for example, Adam originally had no definition because he had no want, he had no need, he had nothing, because he basically had everything. See, but nothing had any value. Think about, how much you want, a new piece of clothing or something, but once you have it, that kind of goes away. Shinji is basically saying, now this is kind of comfortable because there's nothing, there's no external influence. I'm in balance with everything because everything is nothing.
It's literally a return to the womb, to the point where there is nothing except existence.
Exactly. Let's see. And we learn that contrast creates definition. If everything is him, then there's no point. Now that he has limitations, well, he is not as free, and so. But he is given the option that he has landmarks, he can move, he can travel, he can make something of himself, he can go from point A to point B. Something is different, and so something can be gained, and that gives value to life, which is basically the tremendous, the key to this entire show. Basically, you are given this freedom, which causes suffering, so you can actually live. Happiness is more than a side effect, the suffering and the happiness are just what happens when you take them.
Note that we went into a spiral, which became an egg, which is now becoming. We're evolving.
Yes.
As the process, and yet the end process is a cross.
Some proselytism. And an eye is at the very end. The eye is the eye of truth. It's the eye that sees the world as it actually is. So basically, what we have here is Shinji is deciding if he should leave the Garden of Eden. He's in this false Eden he's created for himself, the sense of beginning, the sense of nothingness, where he was, even before he understood the self that is mother. But now he's realizing that, hey, I can have definition, I can have happiness. So he's kind of realizing the value of leaving the garden, leaving the point of beginning.
And note also that the shape that we're seeing now and the images earlier of the empty uniform, the similarity going on there is that,
It's the elusive, it's the vague sense of self that is developing at this point. And so he is still concerned. He wants to fill the void of the mind, this thing he doesn't understand. And here, its definition of self is first defined by mothers, and he throughout the show has had to kind of like say, wait a second, woman isn't necessarily mother, woman is also lover, and that's why Asuka is shown there.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have, if you had a kind of a different worldview, this is what I like to call the doujinshi world, but it's probably more realistic than the rest of the show.
Well, yes and no, but it's certainly emotionally probably truer to the average teenagers' experience of the world than the version that we've seen. But if we consider that, in effect, Shinji is seeing his entire life as a cartoon, well, why couldn't he see his life as a different kind of cartoon?
Indeed.
So somehow he's ended up in a harem anime.
Well, that's where everybody really wants to be.
Well, is it really, though? And I think that's one of the interesting points, is that has become such a popular genre of anime. Oh, I do love what has been tossed in here.
Is that so, dear?
Just the entire relationship. It's like suddenly Yui is sitting there just cleaning, and you got the little,
You ready?
Anytime.
So classic, dad reading the newspaper, mom cleaning the dishes.
Yeah, dutiful husband to the strong wife. Very, very different than the way we would see Gendo, normally. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like the perfect little family for Shinji, with the perfect girlfriend and everything.
Yeah, I will admit there's a line we stuck in there that Tristan McAvery ad-libbed, and it was wonderful. In the original version, is he tossed in from Rumpole the Bailey, "She who must be obeyed," which again, actually, I thought reflected the show very well.
I think the original dialogue was
yeah, mm-hmm.
But still, that caught it. So yeah, this is kind of like when Shinji in the film is talking to Kwaru and Rei, and kind of like realizes, hey, there's kind of good stuff in the world, and it is kind of worth living. But it's kind of scary seeing Shinji so optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
But terribly refreshing, I suppose.
It really is. It was nice seeing all the characters kind of inverted, and the frantic, hyperactive Rei, as the new girl, which is a pun in and of itself.
Indeed. And I think you can actually get a resin model of that super deformed Shinji hitting super deformed Rei.
The birds move in really quickly, inexplicably.
Well, again, this is perfect anime world. And I like how the Rei character is so pushed right there. It's just so absolutely not Rei. Yes.
Well, it wasn't a...
So here we see also everybody else has been matched up appropriately in the anime, the anime doujin world, except for poor Kensuke.
Exactly what were you just saying?
Kensuke, he just, he's still at that phase where all he wants to look at is guns and robots and immature stuff like that.
So here we have probably the most important Kensuke shot in the entire series.
Why am I here? Never mind.
It's something all otaku must come to terms with. Do I go for girls or do I stay home and record my favorite show? So.
Okay, some things never change. Misato remains a hottie.
Indeed. But now Shinji is able to appreciate it. Another great drawing.
Just look at those three stooges.
This is great dialogue.
All right, stand up, bow, sit down. Listen up, dude.
So here again we have disintegrating into the art form. So it's all becomes kind of reflexive parody of itself. Because it's funny, all the materials, promotional materials that come out for Evangelion, show Rei smiling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are also, for animation people, we're actually, if you haven't actually seen a storyboard, the little notes we're starting to see are actually animators type notes. And now this is an actual animation script. We're actually seeing the ADR dialogue. It's been broken down. The top section was a description of the scene, and each of these rectangles is actually a single shot, and the dialogue encapsulated wherein.
This current myself is the same way. It's not the true myself.
And here we have Shinji is basically the indifferent god of his own world, and he's kind of realizing, hey, wait a second, the world's a stage. I have to live in it.
Perhaps this world isn't.
And guided first by Misato, which I think is interesting. So I guess this is kind of reconciliation of Misato as a mother figure. And here we have the backwards order from episode 25 of starting with the technicians, which would probably be the most simplified characters in the show. I mean, Hyuga has a thing for Misato clearly, but the characters throughout the television series don't have much depth. And so we're kind of going to the more important characters as we grow here.
As far as the bridge text, it is interesting that Hyuga has a thing for Misato, and Maya has a thing for Ritsuko, and Aoba has a guitar.
Now he's got a thing for Kensuke, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
One must learn to judge.
And so here, they're kind of lecturing him, but a bit more proactively this time. They're a bit more positive, and they're a bit more in character. So they're not just dolls. They're not just voices in the head taking shape of these characters, but they're kind of more like these are people that have influenced me, and this is how I'm growing.
What they think are deeper truths.
And it's also interesting if you look at just the order, the technicians. If you look at the nerve base as kind of like a brain, they would be the people in the frontal lobe. So they'd be the people responsible for logical thought, and then we get further and further down to emotional thought, and so again backwards. So it goes from emotional to thinking before.
He cannot place his trust in another.
And notice characters saying dialogue from earlier in the show with a different and very important inflection.
Only if you think.
Yeah, and of course, Shinji sitting here yelling, "No, I'm not. I'm spineless. I'm weak. I'm cowardly." Yeah, everything that he has convinced himself he is.
And now the moments where he is surviving instrumentality, I suppose you can say. I mean,
He's defined himself.
Yes. Well, instrumentality would be the combination of all the squeezing everybody together, removing all definitions from people, and he kind of survived that process and is beyond instrumentality. So you can say in a way it didn't happen. It was a bad plan. Got around.
I should point out that Pin's not there, but we see him in a few seconds. So it's one of those. What if he was a last-minute addition?
Well, Pen is an interesting character, and it's probably terribly meaningful in some terribly elusive way.
Well, his importance, I think, is very obvious if you go to a Talk to No video. It is, in fact, that every good female character should have a mascot. And Pen fills that role for Misato.
That's the scripture for me. Oh, and here I'd like to say, much can be learned, especially in these episodes, by pausing and going through frame by frame. It's a benefit of having DVD media. But there's also benefit from fast-forwarding right here, because we notice that the moon is actually moving, which, is an interesting concept, much like the sun moves in the end of Death. And still we wonder, maybe Rey should just not be doing that right now.
No, but it's what she does.
That's what she does. That's really her job in the world. She is basically an asexual sex symbol, and helped Shinji make difficult decisions and grow as an individual. And I suppose she just keeps doing that.
Hopefully, one of the other things that we'll be able to include on this disc somewhere is Spike Spencer's original dialogue he recorded after recording his last official line for the show, whereupon, in character, he asked every question that Shinji probably really did have at this point.
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
And thank you.